Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Ben White, Maximum Gravy, Austin Whitsit, John Kays, DL Hill, Julian Jeremiah, Tommy Swagnett, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, FlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Of just like, I don't know, anti-Arwen videos. And it was like some of the most whiny complaints about stuff. Like Arwen saying he wanted to test gun Coriolis or bullet Coriolis effect in America. And they're like, see, he's wanting to kill us. He's threatening our lives. You know, just, it was all stuff like that.
Really?
Right, I've got you now on the Master B, except that's on the web browser.
Yeah, once you're in Master B, just scroll up and click on the link for Meet. That's it.
Yeah, that's fine, dude. It's just that it was the inside the app of Skype, it wasn't working.
Hopefully all good now.
Right, join.
And then dump yourself from Discord. Disconnect.
Yeah, I'm going to, dude. No worries.
Cool. See you in G+.
And the G+ is what? This is what I mean. This is confusing to me.
So what you'll do is, in Skype, in Master B, there's a little green box that says Meet. Just click it, and then it'll take you through exactly what to do.
Right. The little green box. Join Skype.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can figure it out.
So I don't need Google Meets or anything like that.
It'll take you to Google Meet. That's what you're trying to join. But as soon as you click on it in Skype, which is where the link gets shared each day, it'll just open the software automatically as soon as you click that link in Skype.
Right, so I need to actually go onto Google Meets, don't I? Then,
no,
and then
all you need to do...
have an account first.
It should just let you in.
There's joinskype.com/that link there, right?
No. Inside, are you in Skype in Master B?
In Master B, in Skype, yeah.
Yeah. Above where it says hi, there's a message from John, and above it, it says Meet.
There isn't a Meet thing for me.
Hold on.
This is fucking annoying.
No,
like, trust me, I'm not like an idiot with technology.
There you go. Can you see it now?
Skype, Master B. Okay, click on.
You see it?
Yeah, now it's there. No, it's there. Yeah, I didn't see the image from the thing from John.
I added you after I shared it. It's okay.
Sweet. Okay. All right, laters.
Okay.
In a moment. No worries. In a sec.
Alrighty then.
Good morning.
Hello, 10th.
It's all right. He just needs a little help.
Pound says he comes back in Discord.
Yeah, it's technology. You bet.
On the brights.
Well, go on, John.
Go,
I
John.
was going to say, on the bright side of things, Arwen's got like an infinite amount of trolls that can't spell his name, which is awesome.
Oh, I see what you're driving at. So what you're saying is, when you accidentally spell his name Arwjin instead of Arwijn, it came up with a load of troll videos about him because no one knows how to spell his name correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was some of the whiniest crap I've ever seen in my life. It was great. Like, I don't, if I had trolls like that, I would feel wonderful, you know?
Well, they're going to be, if it's based on a misspelling in the title of video of somebody making a response to or making a comment about, then surely they're going to be the thickest of the thick if they can't even get his name spelt correctly. That would be the first thing you'd want, right?
One guy.
It's in reference to him, so you want people searching for him, Arwen, to come up, for your video to come up when you make that search in YouTube. So the first consideration, if you're making a video about someone, is that when you search that person, you find, hopefully, your video, the one you're making about them. But you've got to get their name spelt right. So if you can't even do that, you've got to be thick as shit. Excuse my language.
All about the attention to detail. If they can't get that part.
Exactly. How good are they going to get on with the globe proof or flat earth debunking? It'll probably be straw man.
Oh, they never bring up any of the arguments. Like, I watched like 20 of them. I laughed the whole time. Like, it was like you took a ball away from a kid and made him sit in the corner, and just like all the mean stuff he could think to say while he sat in the corner. That's what all those videos were. It was, I mean, it's hours of entertainment. I'm gonna make a playlist of it, I think.
Now, give us some examples, if you can remember any off the top of your head.
Oh yeah, There's several. One guy was like, he was so offended by the language Arwen used when addressing someone. Or no, that one was about you. I'm sorry. He said that what's that Hawkins guy that's your personal troll?
I don't know.
It's not.
Go on. Carry on. Give the example.
Anyway, he was I guess he sent you an email. Like, yeah. And he sent an email, and he was like wanting to set up a formal debate on a neutral platform, and then you went through the whole, what you can do, meet my demands, and like fly a plane over. But anyway, the guy was like, I can't believe he said that. He has children. He has daughters. It's like, oh my god, that's the best thing you got.
He's got a standard. I've got a standard email for people like that. They send me an email making their demands. You need to give me this, that, and the other to satisfy my desire to debate you. And I just write back with a standard email and sign it, put their name at the beginning of it, which, without being rude, it's downright filthy. But it's basically the most outrageous request you could make of people, because it's like, why on earth would you fulfill that request? And it's like, yeah, exactly. Why on earth would I fulfill any of your requests that you're demanding I fulfill? I wouldn't, and neither would you. But I can make outrageous demands in reply, and if anything, it's more reasonable because mine's a reply. I'm not proactively contacting them, I'm replying with my demands.
Right, but they don't see that part of it. Like, they only see the response. They don't see what they're doing. It's like they're just trying to Jedi mind trick their bullshit away. And Arwen was talking about the Coriolis effect in guns, and he was talking about, like, I don't know if where Arwen lives, guns are illegal or they don't have many there. Because I know in Britain you got to have a special license for a gun or whatnot. But he was talking about going to America and testing the Coriolis effect, to see if it really happens. And then, like, one of the trolls made a 10-minute video just about how Arwen's threatening people's lives. He needs to be stopped.
Oh my God, these people are thick as hell. Oh dear. But no, I don't expect them to get that, by the way, just on that note. Sorry, Solar. Yeah, what I'm doing, John, precisely, is holding up a mirror to their actions. A mirror and a magnifying glass. Yeah? That's all I'm doing. but they don't spot that. They don't go, hey, that's what I'm doing. Just a bit more extreme. No, of course they don't spot that, but that's what keeps me amused.
Right. It's great. But you got to check that out. If you ever get bored and you're just sitting around, just misspell Arwen's name and you'll get like some of the dumbest like anti-flat earthers speaking. And Right the Hand. Who is that?
He's a flat earther that thinks he's kind of, I don't know how to describe Right the Hand. He's a bit Pete Shea.
Wasn't he the guy that said that gas pressure didn't exist?
I don't know. I don't think so. He's not that thick. I wouldn't say he was thick at all. He's just a bit crazy.
Well, yeah, his video was about how like everyone boots him, whether it's Globers or flat earthers, and I was just like, I typed in his comments like, maybe you should stop being a dick. If everyone doesn't like you, it's not everyone else's problem.
Yeah, it's like
But
saying,
man, Nathan,
go on.
that clip that you've got of Bob with your interaction with him earlier this week is priceless. You know how
you remember?
he came to talk to you, to tell you that he wants to make an appointment to talk to you, and then you ask him like the same question, and then he answers every which way. He will not answer it directly or succinctly. Oh, it's epic.
Gets better. So that's the one that's been released to the public. There's 2 more, and they're currently members only. But they're even better by a considerable margin, because he gives me certain concessions that I needed. I didn't need, but it's nice to have them in the bag moving forward. A bit like, at best, you've debunked the radius. It's nice to have those things.
But it was just so effective how you've cut out the bullshit in between. So it's like Nathan asking a question and he gives the wrong answer. Then Nathan asks the question, gives new, different, wrong answer. Nathan asks the question, even new, different, wrong answer. Like the same question being repeated, and this guy is stretching every which way. It's so telling when you take out all the other fight between and just show you asked him this question and he's answering it every which way he can.
Indeed. Well, it got beyond that point a couple of days ago when he was on, like I say, the ones that have made it to members only videos and will be released publicly next week. They're better because he's stunned silence. So yes, there's the fundy muting initially, and yes, there's the attempts to obfuscate, but he gets so worn down not being able to answer that he doesn't know what to say, because he's desperately trying to avoid an argument that involves utilisation of the R value. And in one instance, he's got it in his diagram, but he hasn't labelled it. So in his own mind, he's thinking, I've got away with this. I don't have to fight for R. It's not labelled. Yeah. But then later on, he drew a tangent through his presupposed sphere. All I did was ask him for R, and he couldn't quite believe it, because in his mind, he's like, I thought I'd got everything covered. I thought I'd crossed every T and dotted every I, and here I am being asked for R. And he's just total silence. So long a silence that in the gap, I managed to say, hey, cats, this is what you'd be doing.
Yeah, it was epic. I've been talking to them in Gamma Panda server for like the last week or so, just on this whole sextant topic. And they always say, which flat earther actually owns a sextant to be doing these measurements? They want to make it about, we always claim that we've got to do it ourselves and we can't trust other people's evidence and all this. And Bob was saying to me, come debate him on a neutral platform and he'll teach me about how the sextant works. So it was so epic how he then came into your channel and showed how he knows almost next to nothing about it, that he thinks parallel lines meet like triangulation. Like, it's just retarded. It was brilliant.
So it has your name on your Google account. Oh, he's dropped already. It's going to be a fun day. I think he heard me say
Hey,
that.
did y'all ever?
Go on. Sorry.
Did y'all ever?
I heard him.
formalize a modus ponens involving the sextant. I had to drop yesterday, and I didn't know if, like, I know Brian was really close when I left.
Yeah, did we?
But has it been refined anymore?
No. It needs a driving force in that regard. So without you there saying, we should really be doing this, and me going, yes, he's right, we should be doing this, it won't get done.
I'll friggin' do it then. Damn it.
Even amongst the people that are literally preaching about the motivation levels that we should have upon finding out this glorious information about the beauty of the world that we live in, we're still just as lazy as every other sod, aren't we?
Got children to look after, mouths to feed as well, haven't we?
That is a thing, yes.
Maybe even more so.
I try to practice what I preach. I took my eldest to, got to get the terminology right. They don't like calling it homeschool class, home ed class. Group of kids learning stuff. That's a homeschool class as far as I'm concerned. But if you call it homeschool, they get all fussy. Anyway, home ed class. And it's about an hour's drive away. And my eldest is now at the age where you can have a proper interaction with her. And as a result, I'm like, you've only just come into this world in real terms. So you can't possibly have realised that you should have an appreciation for the beauty around you. How could you possibly know? And as I'm looking in the rearview mirror driving along, she's sort of looking around in the car. I'm like, look out the window. Like, as we go over this hill, look at the expanse. Isn't it fantastic? And she's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, you've got to take this stuff in. Then I had to explain how long we've got here. I contextualise it in such a way to make it seem short, because it is. Using examples like trees, trees have been here for a lot longer than we have, and they'll be here after we've gone. But there we go. You don't have much time to appreciate the beauty of the world we live in. And for a lot of our opponents, they've become lost in this subject. And in that respect, I do pity them. But genuinely, I'm not just saying that. Because there's better things to do than get lost in fighting for your own cognition when it comes to a sphere belief. And you will get to 50, 60, 70 years old and go, what the hell did I do? I spent 4, 5, 6 hours a day writing out troll comments in Flat Earthers videos. That's what I spent my time here doing. It's like, man, your time is so valuable. But there we go. That's just my take on people's lack of time here and how much they should open their eyes to the beauty that is in it. I say while I do a show about the subject, as I've said many times before, once the show finishes, I'm not suddenly concerned about the troll comments and proving to some guy in my comment section that he's got a misapprehension about the world he's living in. I don't care. You leave your comment, great, good for you. If it's vulgar, I'll delete it.
I like Akumu Virus, coming to like, he's just like a religious fanatic, just anti-Nathan, and he's here all the time. But his opinion of us.
What do you mean?
Yeah, he's anti-flat earther, but he's just here in your, he's on your show constantly, and he just has such a low opinion of all of us. Like, what kind of person, if I perceived that there was a room full of people that I thought weren't as intelligent as I was, I wouldn't go in that room and start making fun of people. That's a disgusting human being. Like,
But he's
just on a fundamental level.
He's projecting.
But it doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't even matter if he's projecting. That's horrible. What he thinks he's, either way, it's disgusting.
Let's just agree with you. So, you don't anymore, but I used to, when describing my own chat section, say it's the pits. It is the pits. Dregs of society, scum of the earth. That's what we deal with here. So I just take that as a given. So to single out virus, it's like, no, the people who find themselves here on the anti-flat earth side of the argument are the dregs of society. They're lost souls. And they are scum. And liars, deceits, frauds, all those things. Yeah. Yeah, scum. But they'll spend their life doing that. Again, don't get, if you're going to wrestle with pigs, you'll get dirty. So, yeah, they are. But what are you going to do? Do you want to convert those people? Do you want to make those people better? I don't. I don't. I don't want anything to do with them. They come to me and then demand my attention when they're here. And fine, that's what the door's open for, because that is, whether I like it or not, our opponents. But when you put it into context, which side would you rather be on? The side that's relatively free-spirited and for the most part, pacifists, who are generally taking as much enjoyment out of life and experiencing new things and taking pleasure in pressing the flesh, all of those great things. Well, I don't see our opponents as necessarily doing any of those things. I just see them as wallowing in misery and doubt and self-loathing, and they project that stuff onto us. And you're saying, well, regardless of whether or not it's projection that you can point out, but even if you do, you're right. Don't walk into a room full of disabled people and say, look at my legs. It's disgusting to do such a thing. But that is how they're portraying what they do. They're saying, I consider you my inferior, and I'm going to stand around telling you it. It's like, well, that makes you a pretty disgusting human being. Meanwhile, beautiful fresh air and blue skies outside. I'm going to go to the park later. Went swimming earlier. I'll probably go to the forest. That's what we do. Because life's sweet, as far as I'm concerned.
So
it's pretty sad, really, isn't it?
So since you associated it with wrestling the pigs, maybe that's why we get so much bacon the question here.
Bacon the question?
Yeah.
I
sound kosher.
Other than
They go on, Arwen.
Other than you guys and talking in this group, I don't talk about flat Earth to anybody. Very rarely, if I do anymore, because it's like at the minute that it reaches their cognition, they either have to and you point out the contradictions. They either have to immediately become a flat earther and hate you as you're scum of the earth, or they want you to tell them everything about the world now.
Exactly.
And
I couldn't agree more.
It's horrible.
You either got to become their guru or become their enemy if you bring it up proactively. So what I tend to do, if I know it's going to end up there, normally for me, it's what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a YouTuber. What do you make videos about? I run debates. About what? About cosmology. Oh, really? By then, normally within 2 or 3 steps, they've latched on to one of the things I've said previously and are asking questions about that, if they're inclined to be asking me questions.
I always start out saying, no, we talk about physics, right?
True.
We get scientific because, yeah, that'll yield a little bit more respect and also gives them an opportunity to show if they have any talents in that direction, right? Then I can size up also when they reveal that, ooh, are they going to have more allergy against flat Earth because of it? Because they really liked that study and all the indoctrination that comes with it? Or are they much more neutral and, yeah, so they won't care as much when I bring it up? I always start out yeah, I'm debating about physics, and maybe I'll mention maybe even politics. I personally psychology a lot, and that's how I present it.
Sure. I hope they'll latch on to the YouTube bit being interesting enough to expand upon rather than the cosmology bit. Because, like you say, I don't want to become their guru if you're making small talk because your kids are playing in a park or something. You don't want to launch into explaining them the nature of their reality. I don't see myself as Morpheus when I'm out with my kids at the park. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah,
It's so
you are.
telling, like you said, in terms of them not actually being out and experiencing the world. If you do go out and experience the beauty of this place, you will notice what it is. And it's these trolls sitting behind their monitor screens, click, click. Oh, here's a debunk. Click, click. Here's another debunk. Okay, there, I've done it. And they didn't even leave their bedroom. It's why they continue to be so disillusioned.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man. Who else we got? Arwin, the Adam Meakin, John, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello,
Morning.
hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, at work as usual.
You crack on with a bit of housekeeping?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No,
Well, isn't the claim that there's a extrinsic tangent to an intrinsic tangent point that we can measure as a dip angle? I'm pretty sure there's a positive claim to that, isn't there?
Not mine, if it is.
Well, that's what the dip angle, like you're using a straight line to the horizon, you can just see it, and that's supposed to be the curve, or the straight line meets the tangent, or it meets the curve. So can't be refracted. That wouldn't make any sense.
Strange you should say that, because 20 straight months have been telling us that we wouldn't expect to see a straight line position geometric in nature unless it was a no Atmo day scenario. Is it no Atmo day?
No, that's only concerning light. When you look at it, you see it in a straight line. That's the new thing now.
Hey, crack villain.
Hey, you made it.
You have to take yourself off mute to talk. Make sure you put yourself back on after. No, no sound. We'll figure it out, crack villain, hopefully. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Gonna need an axis for that, I'd say, right?
What are you saying?
Saying you're going to need an R value, I think.
Well, ballers still like to say that we do experience Coriolis deviation, just under very specific conditions for some reason. I don't even know where they got that. Like, they have to build this careful approach, like, oh, you have to do something very specific, and then you have the Coriolis deviation, when in reality, every demonstration that concerns Coriolis kind of shows that, well, everything has to seem to deviate all the time as the actual moving thing is moving underneath. So, yeah, I don't know why they hold on to that.
Well, because they beg the question twice, and after they beg the question of an axis, then they beg the question of conservation of angular momentum on top of that. So they're jumping R twice to justify why they don't see it to begin with.
Nathan, I
Yeah,
posted
but they do say they see it, though. They do say it. It's just like, oh, only in this way do you see it. It's right here. Look carefully. It's over there.
Yeah,
Just
just
this
gonna
one
do
Coriolis deviation, but not all the other things, though.
quick shout outs to, I think it's called Caprica Soul. Hope I've said your name correctly. Quasi experiment 1 of 3. Experiment types in the scientific method. Observation as experiment. Is that true? Observation as experiment? No. That's a composition fallacy. So basically, you're taking part of the explanation for the scientific method and claiming that as the whole. So observation of a natural phenomena followed by systematic experimentation based on hypothesis would be the method. Observation is part of that, but observation of what? Certainly not a concrete noun, a phenomena. Thank you for the super chat, though. Hopefully I've answered your question.
Nathan, I posted an article in Master B.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
We can hear
Sorted it
you.
out. Yeah, I know. I don't understand why it was off. It gave me no option to turn it on. Right, I'll shut up.
Well, observations, just looking at stuff, basically, right? Like, when is looking at stuff science now?
But it seems to be a very popular thing to do that.
I think it was Slick James Johnson that used to say observe and declare.
Yes, it was.
Because I think I was still a baller then. But I thought that made
Some of these guys
know,
are saying that you can just ask a question.
Yeah, that's because Science Buddy says that's the scientific method. Step 1, ask a question. But what am I going to have for dinner this evening doesn't really fall into the scientific method. Why is that happening in nature? That does. So ask a question is incomplete. Ask a question about why something occurred in nature, then you've got a scientific inquiry on your hands.
well, then they get mixed up on what's natural and what's not, and that makes it worse.
Well, so many of them have had to broaden the definition of science to justify their existence.
Well, justify their belief at the very least. I've got your slide up, 10th man.
Yeah, this is from Sailing, astrolabssailing.com. Cast your mind back to the post about celestial sphere, or have a quick refresher by clicking here now. For the purposes of celestial navigation, it is easier to think about the Earth being stationary and the sun and stars are revolving around us. What we want to find out is the coordinates of the sun's GP, geographic or ground position, i.e., the point on the Earth directly below the sun at the particular point in time. Remember that declination is the celestial scale for altitude or degrees north or south of the equator. So it's interesting that in order to do any kind of navigating, we have to assume, I want to talk about that word, that the Earth is stationary. Why do we have to assume the Earth is stationary when we should have Earth-based Coriolis because it's rotating?
Because it is stationary and we don't observe the Coriolis effect that they claim we will.
Precisely. So how did we get here? Well, Eratosthenes assumed we lived on a sphere, first assumption. Then he assumed that sunbeams were coming in parallel, second assumption. Because to explain the shadow 500 miles away, he couldn't just accept the fact that you live on the plane and it's the angle of the sun from that GP of the sun to that obelisk or the pole in Alexandria, casting the shadow. Much like in the afternoon, as the sun is lower on the horizon or closer to the horizon, you see long shadows cast by the trees. So he assumed we lived on a sphere. Then he assumed sunbeams were coming in parallel, which we have proof that we have divergent sunbeams. So none of those things are happening. And yet those two assumptions have them believing that we live on a ball that's rotating. And then when it comes to navigating this so-called ball that's rotating, we got to go back and assume it's not a sphere. It's stationary.
Another shout out to Caprica Soul, who says, what is the definition of natural experiment / quasi-experiment? It's part of the method. Well, no. The method hasn't got a natural experiment part to it. Natural phenomena is what you'll study. Now, an experiment normally is going to be constructed by a man. There's nothing natural about the experiment. What you're studying is a natural phenomena. So I don't really know. Quasi-experiment? Yeah. There's only one method. It studies natural phenomena. Hope that helps. Thank you very much for the super chat, though. Really appreciate the support. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hey, before we go on to that, I wanted to ask Tenth if it in the article he read about Eratosthenes, were there Greeks barking refraction at him when he tried to assume the light rays were parallel?
Not to my knowledge, although someone is telling the story about this person, whether real or not real, and there's so many different versions of the story as well. Nathan, before we move on, you should see 2 more slides coming on. Let me know when they're on, please.
Yep, got parallel sun rays.
Okay, so the first one, you'll see parallel sun rays on a flat plane. The second one, you'll see parallel sun rays on a curved surface. And you can see to the left, Alexandria, shadow, Syene, no shadow. Go back to the first one, where it's on the flat plane. Shadow, no shadow. See, what they're trying to say is, hey, we see a shadow in Alexandria when the sun is GP is over Syene. But look, on the flat plane, how can that work? So when they go to the second picture and they curved the Earth, oh, that's why the shadow's there, because it's the Earth curving is causing the shadow. What a pile of whatever. This is so interesting that they assume on the flat plane sun beams are parallel, when all of us have seen divergent sunbeams.
There isn't any in the picture beforehand, but there we go. Yeah, do you know Plato's allegory of the cave?
Yeah.
Well, it's with shadows, isn't it? People are being deceived in the cave by flickering lights on the wall from a fire by their controllers. And the idea of the allegory is about the people who escape into the real world, come back, and then try and convince the people who are being convinced by shadows. Yeah, but they don't win. They're unsuccessful. They can't convince those people. You know, it's very comparable to our scenario. You know, our anti-flat Earth people are the people trapped in the cave, watching their NASA videos. Then
Yeah.
when they see things like this, they're telling you, sun comes in parallel, the light comes in parallel. Now, you've got to be in a cave looking at a cartoon to believe that. You've got to be looking at these pictures in the books to believe that. Because you've only got to look out your window to know it's not the case. There's going to be a bit of cloud in the sky and you can see that they don't do this. But the books say it does, right? So it does? No. You're just in a cave being deceived by shadows. Speaking of
That
shadows,
is kind of
and the
funny
sun,
that Plato.
any evidence of the distance to the sun? Did you have something else to add? Feel free, John. It doesn't matter that I've asked the next housekeeping question if you wanted to tag something on.
I was just going to say that is kind of funny that they use that he used shadows in that analogy from how they were tricking them.
Indeed. There's lots of parallels in lots of alternative conspiracy truth realms that would use Plato's allegory of the cave. And, you know, I think, without being boastful, ours is the closest, because we've got the anti-flat earthers trapped in the cave. In other words, there's still the majority of people normal out at surface level, that the escapees, that would be us. Right? All right, there's a big flat plane outside this cave, inside of which I'm watching people go into a sky vacuum and various other things flickering on the wall. In my case, most literally, I'll use a projector. But if I'm sat here all day, we talked about this in the pre-show, right? Going, you don't understand. Send. And then I'm going to go and watch a SpaceX launch. You know, number one, you're not enjoying much of life. You're trapped in a cave. But we said, why would we? And I said, I don't. Although I run a show on it, so I'm a total hypocrite. Why would I want to convert those people back in the cave? Once you're out on the surface level in the allegory of the cave, what compels you to go back down into the cave? I mean, I understand there's going to be plenty of people who say, well, my loved ones are still in the cave, and I don't want them in the cave. Like, yeah, but do your loved ones love the cave? Because you might be causing them more heartache trying to pull them out of it. Because they love those flickering lights, don't they? Right? Well, you know what's topside, and you've told them, and they've rejected it once. Just accept it, right? Get on with being topside, seeing the real world, breathing the fresh air, get out of the smoky cave a bit more often.
Well, I thought that it was important too, like if they're right, like, which they're not, but even in their minds, if they're right, they're the worst people that's ever walked the face of their ball. If they're wrong, they're just acting publicly like morons. Like, that's the only two options they have.
Shout out to Skeptic936, who says, parallel sun rays equals no umbra and penumbra. Right on. And that's a problem for heliocentrism. Indeed it is. Right, they've got a contradiction that Skeptic936 is highlighting. That is to say that when they describe how an eclipse works, it doesn't jive with their parallel light rays anymore. Suddenly they're converging to cause penumbra and umbra. And you're like, oh, right. So it's just pick and choose in a Muppet Vision diagram what the light rays are going to do. I see. Well, of course. These are just pictures. You know, you're never going to get a perspective side profile with you looking at the sun and its light travelling to Earth as a sphere in a sky vacuum. You will never achieve that perspective. Number one, because sky isn't a vacuum. We'd all be dead. We'd have no gas pressure. It would have dissipated into that availability of volume and wouldn't be pressing on us anymore. Like, as people, we wouldn't be experiencing the gas pressure that's pressing on us right now if the sky was a vacuum. So, further to that imaginary area akin to Narnia they call space, outer space, a sky vacuum that isn't real, the pictures are depicting parallelized lights travelling from a sun inside profile. So you're seeing the sun and Earth and light travelling to it with a heliocentric moon between the two, and converging light rays. Shout out, very much appreciate the support, Skeptic936. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Heard someone hissing.
Well, that was just me feeling a little bit sick as you said it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for filling us in on that. Crack villain. First thing you say on the Discord, G Plus channel. First words on the show as a proper, regular, full-on guest is, I feel a bit sick. Well, that'll go down in history. Show 1500, by the way. Happy days. Don't normally mention the show number, if ever. But 1500, woohoo! Nobody gives a shit, do they? You bastards. I hate all of you. Not the audience. I love you guys. Smash the super chat.
Yeah, please do. Smash the super chat.
Any evidence, scientific evidence, of gravity? As I'm assuming no molten iron core evidence is going to be forthcoming. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm still laughing about that one.
It's kind of like we have to just sit in silence with the housekeeping, because we know there is never going to be any more evidence. It's all bullshit.
You can easily, for 90% of them, just say you'll need half of that. That tends to keep the ball rolling.
Nice pun.
Oh, another super chat from Skeptic936. Scientific evidence of what? Indeed, yes. The current housekeeping question. Good timing with your super chat. Thank you very much for the support. Scientific evidence of what? Precisely what the hell is gravity? Number one, they've got an out-of-date 107, almost 100, is it 106 or 107? Is it 1916? When was it? I forget when Einstein superseded Newton.
1915. 1915, I thought.
1915. So it's coming up for
Okay.
107 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Currently 106. Yeah, 107 years almost. Out of date. I mean, it's stinking up the place good and proper right now because people still talk about, in name only, Newtonian gravity. And what the hell are you babbling about? You've got your bending pseudo-Riemannian four space-time conceptual medium. It's not mass attracting mass anymore. That's so out of date. But the whole purpose of it being in existence in name only or otherwise is to keep people on a spinning ball. So it's like, well, yeah, it is mass attracting mass, but it isn't in your maths anymore. It's been superseded. Yeah, but we still need that concept because otherwise people wouldn't really buy the idea of having people antipodal from their position on a sphere because they'd fly off it or fall off it. So you've got to have something pulling them to the centre of it, and that's going to be bendy space-time that we'll describe as mass attracting mass when convenient. You're like, so what the hell is gravity again? Exactly. Thanks for the super chat, Skeptic936. Really appreciate all the support.
And, you know, like when they do that, and they say the center of M1 is drawn to the center of M2, you know, that they don't realize how damaging their rebuttal to the black swan was by invalidating their claimed measurement. You know, that everything is built on that.
Hold on. Did you say
So
centre of
you
centre of M1? What would that be measured as a what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for?
Maybe a radius.
Oh, that's the
radius,
one. So that completely ballses that up then, doesn't it? Where'd you get the radius? Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, I don't.
What was that? Muttering? Neil, go ahead.
Kind of sounded like Kermit the Frog said, nope.
He just said no. Well, another super chat. 1,500 shows. Yes. Congratulations, says Skeptic936. Indeed, he do. As I say, I don't normally mention the show numbers, but I'd say 1,500 is pretty good going, isn't it? Shows how long I've been doing this show. See me progressively aging if you flick back through them and go through the intros. Looking handsome at the beginning. Wow.
I even looked at that myself, Nathan. I was like, I went back to one of your really old shows and I was like, wow, he's been doing this a while. He really has. I was like, wow. Not that you'd age too badly, but you know.
Yeah, I have. I don't mind. It's 2 kids. Worth it.
1,500 shows.
Did you just say kids?
1,500.
As if you were the one to carry them.
Yeah, you can almost mark it in the timeline when I start looking a bit more haggard. That's when the first kid came along, and then when I start looking really haggard, is when the second one came.
Nathan, 1,500 shows. You're going to need R for that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what's kept the show with as much longevity as it's got, right? We wouldn't be making 1,500 shows about this subject if you could just close the door on it, i.e. flat Earth. If it was just, well, the reverse is true, right? We're shutting the door on globe faith daily. That's how it is. That's the only reason a flat Earth show can have any longevity. Because it's not the case that we're being closed down. It's just strawman arguments that we have to highlight. We have to battle through the swamp of the misrepresentations of what we are as flat earthers apparently supposed to believe. Well, yeah, we can address those things and point out the logical fallacies and then set to the more interesting work of ripping apart the current paradigm in the Western world, which is that we live on a sphere. It's absolutely absurd, and we can shut the door on that daily. We wouldn't be here if we couldn't, because we'd have had the door shut on us and we'd feel stupid. You know, I've got a reasonable amount of pride also. I'd feel dead stupid if the door had been closed on flat Earth. It hasn't. It's being
100%.
confirmed.
It has been
Today's the
confirmed.
1500 show,
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
and I was late. Oh my gosh.
Don't worry, I was late too, and this was my first day on the show, Neil.
Jeez.
So I've beaten you, and the first words that I said was that made me feel sick. So don't worry, I've got you beat.
I'm here before anybody every day, and today I'm late.
It's
Yeah,
completely
your face
arbitrary.
getting docked.
The fact that I've put numbers next to it, it could have had a hash and then a letter. It means nothing. You know, the fact that it's just a lot is what I find significant. Yes, you can joke about how I've aged over the years, but ultimately speaking, it's still the case that we aren't having the door shut in our faces and made to look ridiculous. That only occurs when people hold up the controlled up narrative positions that are fed to them. And unfortunately for you, if that's the position, like it was with me when I first got here, and it was for most people, that's your own ignorance. But, you know, recognising that is a doorway to often more ignorance. I was going to say enlightenment. Total lie.
But that's what I always say, Nathan, is that if we're infinitesimally small, we're meaningless, we are not a threat to the globe, then how is it that there are so many anti-flat earthers and still they are making videos to apparently rebut that which we not say? Obviously, they're not rebutting what we say, but at the same time, there's a continual feed toward trying to distract away from what we are saying. So if we are infinitesimally small, we're meaningless and we're inconsequential effectively to the globe and its defeatance, then well, what are we still doing here? You know, the globe really didn't stand the test of time. They would have you believe it's been thousands of years, in fact, that the globe has sort of been the the mainstream. And you can really find it if you look into it, you know, going back 150 years where it was taught in schools. The globe hasn't stood the test of time. And people say, where are the whistleblowers? Well, I know people from NASA personally that actually have whistleblowed on this themselves, too, in fact, that they themselves believe the Earth to be flat. They work for NASA. And then they say, where are the whistleblowers? Hello, guys, we're right here. We are here. There are 1,500 episodes on this show alone, right? I personally involved in a live stream daily, and it has longevity. And it wouldn't have longevity, and we wouldn't have these people strawmanning us continually still to this day if we were inconsequential and insignificant and not a threat. That in and of itself proves the lie that they say is a lie.
Well, it's an argument from silence fallacy to say where are the whistleblowers anyway.
It is an
That's
argument
true.
from silence fallacy, that's correct. But ultimately, I think that is why, you know, for now, perceived as a threat. Yeah, I think that goes without saying that the requirement for suppression, despite us arguing the other day about it being a potential valve being opened rather than closed, if you get my drift. I don't want to detail it because I will segue onto that vein rather than the fact that we're being suppressed means that we need to be suppressed. Tends to be the case that if you look at it in the most simplistic terms, rather than looking for the deeper meaning in truth, it's like, no, suppression is required, so suppression is applied. Just look at it like that and go, okay, well, why? You know, why is that necessary? Well, you're probably right, because it's a threat to the calm nature of society that we have currently, and you know, disturbing the apple cart isn't necessarily what's good for society, especially if you're in control of it. So maybe that's why we've had to be suppressed. But it doesn't change the fact that we're out there. We, when I say we, it's the colloquial flat earth we, the recognition of the nature of world not being a sphere, being a flat plane, by the way we navigate, etc., etc. But that recognition, I don't necessarily care about, other than I want to be a successful YouTuber. You know, getting a better penetration in the mind's eye of the Western world that we are on a flat plane. As I said in the pre-show, half the time people want to brace against it and they like the cave. So it's like, have your cave then. I don't want to take that away from you. Good for you. Stay in the cave.
Well, it's almost better that they have that attitude for me, because the idea of being someone's guru is nauseating. I hate that idea.
Yeah, me too. Like, don't ask me. I don't know. Oh, you want to laugh that I don't know? Well, I'm not laughing at you because you believe something I know that isn't true. In most cases, I pity you for it. I don't know, I'll tell you that because you'll probably see it as some sort of weakness, but it's true. But no, I don't want to be your guru. You know, when you're like, well, how does the world have an edge? Where's the dome? Where's the ice wall? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. What's the moon? What's the sun? How far is it? I don't know. I ask those questions myself because I want to know the answer. I mean, I ask the farcical questions about molten iron cores because I know it's preposterous.
The molten iron core one, it really is preposterous as well. It genuinely is the most. That's why that one makes me feel sick, and it makes me gag because obviously the mere suggestion of it, if you understand where that starts from, that doesn't start from any form of anything even slightly. Not it doesn't even come from like at least sticks and shadows. Do you know what I mean? Like it didn't even come from sticks and shadows type level of stupidity. It literally came out of the mind of a man who had written 11 million words on alchemy and I believe died to poisoning himself with mercury. That's all ignored when we talk about Newton. And you know, it was genuinely just a thought that he had. He hypothesized three main layers to the Earth, and then you know, the field of you know, geology and the field of seismology just ran with it eventually because he was on this pedestal. That's all it is. And that's why it makes me feel sick because it's like something that he had in a sick, deluded dream. And because he was on this pedestal, they were like, okay, sweet, let's run with that. You know, he's a great man. He's given us great knowledge. But again, like I said, they ignored the main bulk of his work, which I believe is 99% of his work, which would be the alchemy work that he did. And they called him crazy for that at the time as well. So that's why it makes me feel sick.
I didn't expect that as the conclusion, but great. Shout out to Mike808, who sends me a super chat saying, congratulations on 1,500 shows. Wow, thank you very much indeed. I really do appreciate the support. It's been a tough month in all seriousness. But yeah, thank you very much for the super chat.
That explains why on your first show you said you were sick. It was that question.
It was that question. It was.
Any evidence we can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? This is what I'd hope for on show 1500, like maximum enthusiasm level from both Discord
I'm
and
just
G+.
waiting for.
Struggling to
I'm just
control the
waiting.
buttons.
Silence is good because we know what we're going to say, and we're just waiting to see if there's any defender of the globe that's going to come on and offer anything, and they haven't for months and months. So,
Can you get some Jeopardy music and play it after each housekeeping question, just so that in that time only Globers can give responses? Like give them like 5 seconds to respond, like to start talking, just to see if they do it.
For me, it'd be Countdown. I don't know if you have that show over there.
Countdown would be better, yeah. That would be our equivalent, right, Nathan?
I'm not sure.
Oh, it'd be nice if we could actually get the lady as well.
That's what we have. That's Countdown. It's over 30
Okay.
seconds and just raises in pitch over the course of 30 seconds while they're guessing a word scramble or whatever. Hey, Brian.
Yes, Brian. So I say hello to Brian and he leaves. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
What you talking about? It's what you did 3 times. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Crack. Hey, everyone. I pressed the camera off button, then I pressed the hang up button. Instead of pressing 4 times, I tried to press the mute button. So that's why I disappeared. Happy 1500, man.
Indeed. Thanks. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Did we do all the housekeeping questions?
I believe so. I'm glad that I've joined today as well. It's a little bit, I'd say, poetic that I've joined on my first show on the 1500th show. That's yeah, I like that.
Shout out to Are You Smarter Than a Flat Earther channel, which is Spurs Chemo's channel. So I was faffing around trying to improve my audio quality at God knows what o'clock in the morning, and up popped Spurs Chemo versus Conspiracy Cats. So check it out if you want to hear that discussion, which centered largely upon how can we have gas pressure pressing on a man, or the equivalent argument of pressing on a barometer, when you haven't got a container around that particular vicinity. That was Katz's argument. It's like, without the container, there can be no pressure, end quote, Conspiracy Cats. There wouldn't be any pressure to be pressing on a barometer if the sky was a vacuum. It'd have all dissipated.
Yeah, you have no inward vector, sir. You have no inward vector, sir.
Yeah, they'd just dissipate into space and never return to press on your barometer or on you. We'd all be dead if there wasn't containment. It's an antecedent consequent thing. You can't measure the pressure inside the container if you haven't got a container, because the gas is just going to fill the volume. So how do I measure this pressure? What pressure? You haven't got a container in fantasy sphere world. Now, that doesn't invalidate the fact that we have pressure. It doesn't mean that you can quiz us on a delta of gas pressure. It just means that we've got containment. It's a requirement. And that invalidates space.
Yeah, we don't need to provide the source of the containment. It's just logically follows, or should I say it just follows factually, so that if we have pressure, we have an inward vector, then thus there is a container.
Not necessarily an antecedent relationship, because you could argue, weaselly though it is, I hate pulling flaws in people's arguments when they're on my inside. Right? So as the gas escapes, let's say you've got a massive, I don't know what you call it, geyser of gas, whatever, a vent that opens up in the ground. Now, at this stage, we have got a vacuum at sea level. So it's just expanding out. Now, as one of those gas particles expands out, it happens to breach at a higher velocity than a gas particle that's left ahead of it, for whatever reason. Yeah? And it collides with that on its way up. What's it going to do when it collides with one of its own gas particles that it's escaping with?
It's going to create a form of pressure, of course. It's going to create a form of pressure, yes.
But it's going to come down. It's going to bounce off the gas that's
wouldn't
around
it. Just slow it down?
No, it'll just bounce off it. Now,
but what happens if we stop the valve? If we stop the inlet, right? Then it equilibrises eventually, right? So
yeah, entropy will take hold. It will dissipate. In other words, if that gas particle that I'm describing, I'm being so easily. Don't think that I'm describing something that makes gas go down, go boom, boom. It just means that if it collides with something, it's just going to bounce off it and go in the other direction. Now, on the whole, in this scenario, it's just flooding out of the ground in my hypothetical example. Now, regardless of that happening for a very short period of time, like a fraction of a second, it's still just going to disperse into whatever volume it's got. And what you're saying is, in that hypothetical exact same scenario, which was why I picked it, when it eventually does dissipate, to be heading back down towards the ground, it's got to have hit something and be coming back down, right? So I understand the principle of why you've expressed it in that way. But there's just weasel room in there that I immediately saw as soon as you said it. Sorry.
Well, no, you're right to do so as well, because at this point where we're this far along inside of the argument, we should actually expand it into the Weasley, because therefore, obviously, we can cover every single basis. Because actually, the last argument given to me for gas pressure without a container was somebody talking of a glass tube with a continued pressure increase into the tube. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But the point there is what? That you have a continued releasing of the valve that would create continued collision, that would create a bouncing down effect for you to have an inward vector. But that isn't the same as what we have here on Earth, where it's non-analogous, correct? So again, it's a straw man to my position, right? Which my position would be, you have no inward vector, sir, right? Okay. So yeah, I understand why you did that, because people do use that as an argument.
Is that a pun? Straw man. It's equivalent to a
I wanna
plate, isn't
say-
it? They've got a plate that they've got gas not escaping from. They've got a ground layer, an aspect for their gas pressure, the ground, right? Whereas they're saying, well, if I put it in a straw... No, I take it wasn't a pun. No worries, we like puns here.
No,
Well, we
it was.
didn't, but-
You could take it that way.
Yeah, but the inward vector, the claim of weight, that's 107 years out of date. That's using Newtonian gravity, so they shouldn't be arguing that point. That's
Of course they should.
been debunked.
You
They
sure it
should.
doesn't go to the centre of M1 then? What would that be, a radius? Oh yeah, they'd need a radius. Their M1 centre is Earth, isn't it? Oh yeah, radius
Oh
required.
yeah, you need a R.
You're getting it.
Right, but even if you beg the question of R, and you're using the argument that gas has weight, you're still arguing within Newtonian mechanics for that, because you know it's the Earth rising up. Like the gas has no downward vector. It's the Earth rising up in Einsteinian, creating the microstates. So it's not weight. What the hell are they talking about?
Well, what they're doing by bringing in the G in any way, especially with the gravity as a force thing, is what they're actually saying is we're claiming PV equals N or G, because they're replacing the T with the G, because they're taking away the other thing that like they're claiming a vacuum, right, outside of us, which requires a container. Then they're taking away T, which is temperature, which also requires a container. And then they're denying the temperature manipulates, like outside of gas being contained, the only manipulation you can give to gas then, once it's in the gas form, the gaseous form, is with temperature. So they're denying temperature will manipulate the gas pressure we have, giving us a gas pressure gradient. They're completely denying that. But there is, as I put in my presentation, there is some other factors in it that cause the gradient, but the temperature is the main thing. Because you take temperature away, no matter what you do, you won't have a gradient.
Yeah, but what I'm saying about their downward vector to the center of presupposed spherical Earth is that is a Newtonian claim, and Einstein superseded that. So, like, even if you debunk that position, it's not the position they should be holding anyway. Like, what do they think they're doing?
You've probably got, although he's not, Sleeping Warrior going, yeah, exactly. You got to get them commit to the current nonsense of their science and their rhetoric, and relinquish the old and busted.
No, I totally agree, John. And obviously with Nathan too, but I totally agree. They have to see that when it comes to gas, they have to. With Einsteinian, it's up and out the way, right? That causes the pressure. So the globe Earth is causing gas pressure by pushing up the way through gas, right? That would basically be that's basically it. Yeah. But how can a globe? That's why you have to bring in the relativity math for a globe to be pushing up the way in all directions all the time, because basically that means the globe is pushing out constantly on the gas. That would mean the globe would be constantly getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they have to bring in the relativity maths, which is nonsense for that. It just doesn't work, because what they don't understand is when Einstein took all the Newtonian view of things and threw that out the window. What he came up with then completely ignored gas behavior, because he wasn't claiming gas behavior. He never claimed that to do with gas behavior. He never tried to give gas weight or anything like that, because he knew that wasn't possible.
Quick shout out to obviously Sarah Says, who says congrats, and the Earth is obviously, observably and measurably flat. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Really do appreciate the support. Sorry to interrupt your flow, Brian. Also, while I've got the mic, California Nightmare, somebody's put you on server mute. I'll just see if I can get your attention so you can join back into the conversation if you can put yourself on mute. If you've got a load of noise, I'm just going to server mute you again. Can you hear us, California? No, might end up on server mute again. No response. Still got his mic wide open, or her. Feel free to continue, Brian. I'm sorry to break up your flow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
No,
I'll mute
it's
myself
okay.
now.
That's fine. Did you have anything you wanted to add? If not, he's popped himself on mute, so fine. Marvellous. Everything's back in order. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Brian? Sorry, again.
No, no hassles. No, I know you have to do what you have to do. Not a whole lot other than they need gas to have weight to create to have any claim towards a gas pressure gradient in gas pressure. They need it to have weight.
Well, what is weight anyway, Brian? What is weight? I mean,
well,
if I put myself on a scale, what is it?
Well, it's your weight within that medium, isn't it, Neil? If you put the scales in a swimming pool, you stand on it, then that's your weight within the medium of water. You know, but I mean, gas can't go down in gas. So weight is a downward vector. So they can't weigh air in air. Air doesn't have any specific weight in air. They have to contain the air and weigh the container with the air and the container without the air. That's the only way they can weigh air, because the container will have a downward vector. But they need something that has a downward vector in air to weigh anything. You know what I mean? So weight is only a convention, like.
Got it.
Well, as I understood it when I was on the other side, the Einsteinian mechanics was an inertial vector, and that the bending space-time is what kept everything at the forefront of that vector, and that the microstates were being created towards the surface because of that vector.
John,
That's
I disagree with you. I disagree. You said when you were on the other side. Call it like it is. When you were on the dark side.
Anti-flat Earth, the dark side.
You don't know the power of the dark side. I must obey my master.
Well, that was when I thought I was measuring a sphere, you know? Like, I thought I was measuring something. It's an easy place to end up if you ain't careful.
So
your master was the measurement.
We're not the dark
side, then. You could always measure, right? No, we're not.
You can be Chewbacca, Neil.
What was that?
You can be Chewbacca.
Did you say he can chew tobacco?
No, he can be Chewbacca.
I thought you said you could chew tobacco.
No, we're figuring out which character would be in the Flat Earth version of Star Wars, obviously. Try and keep up.
It's early in the morning. I just woke at the moment.
Can I be the bad CGI singer in the third movie?
You mean in the remastered third movie?
Yes, that one. The one that kind of ruined that whole.
Oh, that guy that sings in the cantina.
Yeah. I want to be that guy because he completely just ruined that whole setup. I think it was better before, I believe.
Okay then. Star Wars doesn't come up very often on this show, does it? Matrix quite frequently. Star Wars not so much. I noticed.
Well, it's because I was more of a Trekkie.
Fair enough. Me too.
That's an earful.
I noticed Jaron had made a video about Kubrick. They were talking about the connections from lenses that Kubrick had got to NASA. Barry Lyndon was filmed under very low light and he needed a very specialist lens. This is Stanley Kubrick. And NASA are on the cutting edge of, wait for it, cinematography. You thought I was going to say space travel, didn't you? No. Cinematography. So that's where he went to get his really top quality lenses to film Barry Lyndon in very, very low light, candlelight basically, not at all studio based. But to get his realism, he wanted those lenses, and he got them from NASA. And then from what I've gleaned, and this is what's explained on Jeronism's little clip video that he's taken from one of his shows and shortened, they had their hand in Kubrick's pocket throughout his production of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And they went into details about how Kubrick had dropped a lot of subtle hints about perspective in terms of the way he's making the movie and how he's shooting it. I mean, if you watch Rob Ager, I like his analysis of films better than anybody's. I think he's an exceptionally good film analyst. Is that right? Analyst, that's the one. But yeah, check out Rob Ager when he analyses 2001. He pulls apart certain intentional, both cinematography errors and, if you want to call them that, continuity errors that would be so blatant to any filmmaker of any competency that they can only be intentional. But those sorts of details are in the movie and subtle, like the direction of travel when he's on the treadmill, you know, and he's running around that sort of circular shaped space station. How that's traveling to your position and how he's running on it not only changes direction in terms of which way he's running, like physically, like the thing's moving in the opposite direction, it also changes its orientation from left to right and direction of travel as they flick between the camera shots. Now, unless someone like Rob Ager pointed that out, I would never notice stuff like that in a Kubrick movie. You know, I know how layered they are, but, you know, you can only take in so much when you're actually engrossed in the movie. And most of it is, like Rob Ager points out, surface level stuff that you take in when you're just engrossed in the narrative or the plot. So it does take a good analyst to sort of highlight some of the things that Kubrick does. And also someone like Jaron to go through, you know, who he was connected with at the time, and potentially why he was connected with it. Yeah, some of it's speculation, but a lot of it is actually documented in history. You know, it isn't an unknown thing that Barry Lyndon was filmed with NASA lenses. So there you go. Check it all out. There was me thinking that Kubrick discussion would spark a really insightful conversation from my panel, but clearly not.
Well, I was just thinking,
maybe in 2001 it would.
Maybe, yeah, 20 years ago.
so they get paid $53 million a day to be on the cutting edge of cinematography.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Another opportunity to shout out Dilly Gill, who also does a lot of expose on NASA, does a lot of freedom of information requests. If you like that particular aspect of Jaron's work, you'll definitely like Dilly Gill, because he's like that plus some. So, you know, check out Dilly Gill. But yeah, I'm using his descriptions for the most part, Dilly Gill's descriptions, because they're accurate in terms of what NASA do. They're playing their cards very, very close to their chest in terms of how they fake space. But Dilly Gill will break down how they do the various different camera angles in what they call a live feed, and they've got a certain interaction level on set. That would be the high wire trapeze artist style set with a lower angle that you can't see the ceiling on the space station, and then they have a higher resolution camera that they can tart up in post and then release to the public after the fact. He'll go through all of the details how it's done and show that it's two different camera angles that are right on top of each other, just subtly changed so that one has got the ceiling in and one hasn't. So that when they're doing it quasi-live with very, very, very thin trapeze, the wires are super thin, and it's presented to a quote-unquote live audience on a CRT monitor that's 20, 30 feet away from their seating position in a studio, and the hosts, who are close enough to the TV monitor to potentially catch them out, have got their backs to it. So the setup of the studio is as follows. At the front of the stage, if you want to call it that, is a TV, relatively small. And then in front of the TV, with their backs to the TV, you've got two presenters. And then 30 feet away from that, you've got audience watching what they think is a broadcast from space. Now, when compared with the post-production tarted up version of the live broadcast that's given much, much later down the line, there's a ceiling that shows them floating. There's no way to fake you with wires because there's a ceiling, right? Well, no, that's been put in post-production, and what the audience was presented in the studio on a screen at 30-foot distance was a lower angle in what Dilly Gill used to call, although he's started to modify his language, and I hope he changes back, he used to call it crapovision. The audience gets low def, fuzzy as all hell, crapovision. That's what they get. So that they don't notice that it's completely fake. They're on bloody high wire. Now, anybody on our side, this is laughable. I'm smiling because I know that there's no point in me trying to stress this, because it's either bloody obvious, which it is to me, laughably so, or it isn't. You know, it's one of those things that I struggle to wrap my head around explaining NASA to people, because if I ever attempt it, all you end up doing is finding they reach one extreme or the other really quickly. Yeah, it's really obviously fake. Yeah, I see what you mean now. They're on high wire. Or, this is an outrage. How dare you? Why would they? Why would they spend all this money? What a stream of questions because they're rebelling against it. It's like, no, either you get it or you don't. If you can't see that they're faking you, you want to believe the magic trick. You know, your disbelief's been fully suspended, and that's it. You want it to remain suspended. I can't do anything about that. If you can't see it, you're blind.
Well, what John said a few minutes ago there about how they're spending 50-odd million a day on cinematography, that's technically not true anymore, because they don't need that anymore. They have loads and loads of CGI and loads of belief. They've got the belief in mass within the public. I use the word mass on purpose. And now they can now, right, show you something where astronauts are claimed to be in space, and they're not in space. They're either in a swimming pool or whatever. And if something goes wrong, they can always claim, sorry, that was the wrong footage. That was our training footage. You know, that's where they're at. And people will accept that. Whereas I don't think people would have accepted that as easy at one time. But now they just accept that. Oh, they just put the wrong footage up. Or they can, if there happens to be bubbles, they can claim, oh, that's our training footage. That's not the actual footage. If there's an accident, we showed the wrong footage.
What you're looking for is Stockholm syndrome. So they've fallen in love with their captors. They're making excuses for their captors. That's what that is. Stockholm syndrome.
But it took time to get to that. To get to the point where they could make a mistake, where the public says, how come there's bubbles in space, or whatever, and they can say, oh, sorry, that was the wrong footage we used that time. That was our training footage. And then people go, oh, okay, then that makes total sense. But whereas they would have got away with that maybe back in the 60s and 70s, but they get away with it now.
Indeed, they do. But with that, I am going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as an Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. If you are a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, then there are several members-only videos that are going to stay that way for at least the next week. So check those out if you're a member, or become a Nathan Oakley 1980 member to check those out. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you are watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
A tithing to the religion of Scientology, and effectively, really, it is. And something that was interesting. I did say this, and I'm trying to get back in contact with the guy. I've got him on Discord, and I tested him. Because obviously, if you know anything about astrophysics or a theoretical astrophysics at all, is that, you know, and I always mention this one word so as to test the acumen of the person, or just to test whether or not it is actually the field that they're in. And I always say axioms. I keep saying axioms, like just slipping it in over and over again, because I want him to turn around and talk about the axioms, right? So I believe it's Bissell's axioms. So and he straight away, he was on it. He was like, yeah, Bissell's axioms. And he started to speak on them, and he was inebriated though. And I said, would you come back and speak about it? Because obviously he said this could be damaging to my profession. I just believe that while he was drunk, it seemed like a better idea for him to be speaking than obviously now since he's sobered up. So it's a little bit of a shame, unfortunately. But the way that he explained it to me then was effectively the grants that they receive from the different universities and different boards to run the labs. And it is a circle jerk with the peer review. And he admitted this, and he was extremely intellectually honest. You know, we took him through the Black Swan. We explained to him a multitude of different things about, you know, how you can't have an open container that effectively has a gas pressure of 14.7 psi, and the arguments that we gave to him in that time, and he was like confounded, almost like, no, sorry, should I say dumbfounded, and you could just tell it was in his voice. He was just like, wow, and then he started to let it slip, like, you know, the very, very, very how do I put it, the very selective means in which they're selected into the cult. And he was like, it is like a cult. And I was like, so you're willing to admit this? I said, are you willing to come and do this when you're less inebriated? And he was like, yeah, I could provide my credentials to you, to somebody else who's like a moderator or something like that wouldn't share them, just to prove who I am, so that you guys feel comfortable having the conversation with me, that I'm not just sort of, bullshitting you. And I was like, yeah, that would be great. So, I feel like this may be a better platform, in fact, even for that conversation to take place. So if I can get hold of him, I'll be in contact with Nathan straight away, just to sort of maybe see if we can eke that conversation out with him here on one of these little podcasts here. That would be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think having Discord involved with that and open, I don't think that would be a great idea, because you'd get some anti-flat earther in there, like screaming, trying to cut him off, or he couldn't be heard.
But that's
you
what
know,
the
then
mute
again,
button is for.
right? But
we
then
could just
again,
mute the Discord and then just have him in
Yeah.
here with us, right? You know, like, and then,
Yeah, that's
boom.
Well, what I was going to say, though, is, you know, it's like you caught a magician drunk, and he was telling you how he does all of his tricks.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
When he sobers up, he's going to slap himself on the forehead and be like, I'm shooting myself in the fucking foot. There's
That's
no way
what
I'm
me and
doing
Eli
this.
were saying, because it was me and Eli that were having this conversation with him for like 4 hours, right? And like we were just like, you know, taking him through, and then we even had him admitting, you know, about obviously how sextants would work, and then it was like, you know, how can you have a triangle with a curved base to it? And then we started showing him different diagrams to do with the way sextants work, and he was just like, and it was like, it was just so good to hear from him the intellectual honesty. And I said, I don't know whether it's because you're drunk, sir, or what, but you know, like you said, we caught the magician drunk, and he started to show his tricks. And it would be brilliant that we could maybe effectively have that conversation with him when he's not drunk. You know, I'm going to suggest to him next, you know, maybe a voice changer or something like that of the like, and I'll say to him, well, I'll offer him that we'll delete the previous live stream that he was on, so that that isn't out there, so that there could be no comparison drawn to him to the original antecedent to the conversation that would be had next, right? So yeah, that's something that I'm trying to work on, and I'm really trying my hardest to get him to do that, because I do think, though it wouldn't be fruitful, it would be something that we could shove in the face of everybody else quite quickly. Like, you know, we have a theoretical astrophysicist here that effectively is saying all of the things that we have been saying for so long, and it would be brilliant to have.
But yeah, like, what I'm saying, though, is when that dude sobers up, he's gonna He's going to think about what he's actually done. And it's going to be a lot easier for him to compartmentalize that into a little box in his mind and just push it to the back.
Of
And,
course.
Like, you know what I mean?
The point is he's already done it, right? So now what he can do is he can choose to do it now under a way. And like I said, he can choose to do it now with more control, meaning where he cannot have his voice attached back to himself, where we offer him the idea that we can get rid of the original thing that you did that was on live stream. So he's already done it, is what I'm trying to say. He's already shown his hand. He did this on a live stream.
Really?
Dude. Yeah. So like he might as well do it in a way where he has more control. So yeah, dude, like that's exciting to me, right? That makes it so much better. And I'm sorry for my silence there in the show, but you know,
in Master B, can you
yeah,
in Master B, can you send me a timestamp for that?
I can try to, yeah, definitely.
Yes, I want to hear that. That's going to be hilarious.
I have some stuff to post into Master B in a moment that I'm going to post. It's Black Swanian, meaning it's an observation and all of that. But the issue is that my cousin was saying that he has some access, potentially to high-powered lasers, and then we have infrared viewfinders, meaning for distance, right? But just orientation of this island alone, based on where we are off of the southwest coast of England, the orientation of the island, this place that we took the observation from is the closest. That's why we did it that way anyway. So any other place that you did it on the coast there would basically be a worse of a black swan anyway, and you can see it from any of these positions. And it would be great to sort of have a orthographical position with a drone and then a laser test that would show that the light isn't bending because the laser itself across is not bending from that orthographical position, right? And then obviously we would then have a black swan observation, and I'll show you the preliminary. I'll pass it Master B now.
But that claim of light bending is that means it's optical, so it's not geometric. So I won't worry about that claim.
Yeah, no,
that's the point. I guess that's the point that I sometimes forget how they actually undo themselves, and that's why I'm so happy that I'm on this panel, because it's really showing me the fallacious nature and the way that these people argue. Because sometimes it's like, you know, we feed, and not just me, I'm talking about other flat earthers. We feed into what it is that they're asking of us, right? But for my own sake, you know, it's like, you know, this is an observation I took myself, and it's one that is, I would say, it's at 19.7 miles away, you know, and then all of the claims that they make over the black swan and everything like that, the things that they say are missing from this. Meaning, and you'll see in Master B. I'll say no more. Because the black swan sort of does really say it all for us, but in terms of, you'll see what I'll post.
Well, are you saying you like the way I snuck in the sun as an object the other day? Like, just try to slip that under the radar, make it physical, make it, you know, like we know it's a ball of something. I mean, it's really all they got is word tricks and. That's it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. That's what they have left is word tricks. They have, like you said, like the magician that shows his hand, but like they're just continually trying to do the sleight of hand, and they're effectively they're becoming sharper at doing so, I believe. You know, sometimes I actually see flat earthers go into to non, you know, anti-flat earth sort of servers, and I watch them get wrecked in debates, and they do get wrecked by strawmans, you know, wrecked by fallacies, but they get wrecked. They get scattergunned. They get wrecked in such a way, Arwen, that like it looks to the audience, it looks as if it is, how do I put it? It looks as if they have been destroyed.
Well, they're being publicly humiliated in that moment, and because everybody's all probably going to be loud and muting him and talking all over him, that feeling is going to come across like, oh, that's a person that's being shamed, but you're not going to be able to hear an actual argument, right? That's part of the tactic. Just drown it out with social, visible peer pressure, and leave out the context. because that's where the flat earthers actually win. But if you just reduce it all to a social process mockery, then unwitting bystanders might not catch on to that. Part of the trick.
Well, if you make someone look bad enough, without, as you said, Arwen, without allowing any context in, and that's, that's good enough. Look, that's what the media does all the time, don't they? They character assassinate people without allowing the facts and context through. That's what they'll do. And the same person that they character assassinate today, they might have promoted yesterday. That kind of way. So that's what they do. It's a character assassination. And the public then go, oh, that's the bad guy or that's the wrong guy or girl or whatever. But the thing about it is that if you don't allow the context through, or if you did allow the context through, then that would change everything.
Well, the news does it even worse because they don't even give the person they're attacking a platform. They just cherry pick words or whatever out of that and make it entire articles about that and how that's supposedly a sign of their character, and prevent people from actually finding the patience to look into some of their arguments, right? To where they stand, really. So the constant straw manning and then just, parading it around like a mockery, leaving out any actual arguments, because the arguments were the main problem in the first instance. So they can allow it in.
Sounds like this astrophysicist, once he sobers up, he won't be level-headed.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, Arwen brought up a good point. They spent trillions upon trillions of dollars on infrastructure to control the information we receive, because if you don't have the information, it's hard to come to a logical conclusion on what is true or not, So that it's almost as if these people realized how important controlling information actually is. That was the conspiratorial part kind of slipping out.
No, it's good conversation. I'm enjoying it.
If they
can I add something? Sorry, before you go.
Look at it controlling everything now. I don't want to bring up the narrative, but we all know what we're talking about. Look at they're only allowing certain information out.
Right. Political media is in ways even worse than what happens between Ball and Flat Earth on the social media, because they, God, stop popping up. In political land, they actually go as far as to create completely fabricated characters as straw men. So like unidentified trolls that they then act. They crawl in that skin and then they act like the opponent, and they actually try to enact the straw man that they were trying to create for their real opponents. They go that far even.
Flat Earth Society.
No, but that's different. That's an actual faction. That's a controlled opposition, but it is an actual identity, right? If you online with trolls, then a whole bunch of anonymous people can get in your face. You'll never know who they are. And if they're then carefully acted out to fit a straw man profile of an actual opponent that is targeted, then you won't be able to tell. And people might be indoctrinated through those types of trolls to really believe the straw man opponent and then latch onto attacking them. Like they will just say, you're a Trumper, for example. And then anything related to that
when it becomes
is
propaganda?
Bad. Yeah, of course it does. That's absolute propaganda. Very devious.
Yeah, and they changed the laws back in, I think, 1972 in America. There was, I'll have to look it up what the actual law was, or the regulation. It wasn't actually a law, but there was a regulation in place that the level of which they can spread misinformation to the public changed. So instead of having
there was a law in the late 80s, I think, that was removed to do with the media and whether they could lie or not to the public.
Right. It pretty much come down to, as long as the anchor who is reporting it believes it is true, then they can report it, is what the law allowed them to do.
It becomes infotainment.
Hold
That's
on.
the new classification. I think it's since the late 90s, news are allowed to make up fabricated stories.
Right, there's a
or at least the
standardized-
US news.
That sounds like a standardized bullshit-o-meter. So you're saying if the bullshit is sufficient enough to dupe the reporter that's reporting it, then it will stand in the public as a true piece of information that's valid. But if it doesn't, when is it ever going to be the case that a reporter's going to say, you know what, I just don't believe this? Excuse me, producer, I just don't believe this shit. When's that going to ever happen?
It does happen, but you'll never hear about it. But they'll just stop engaging. It's like they figure out the spell that they have helped build. They figure it out and they're like, what is this? Wait, that wasn't what I thought it was. I'm going to stop forwarding that narrative now, right?
There was a female host on RT, actually, that resigned on air over, I think it was marijuana, a medical marijuana issue. So that was a sort of a protest.
But by the standards, did you say on RT? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to have the American law applicable then. Okay, well, interesting. I didn't know that was the case, and absurd though it sounds, obviously that pisses on my bonfire, because yes, that has actually happened, and if it had happened in the States, then presumably they'd have to make a load of retractions.
Well, she was an American, and she was on the American English version of RT, broadcast, internationally. So,
is that when she walked out of the RT building and did a interview with Anderson Cooper? Is that what you're talking about?
It all sounds very dramatic. It all sounds very newsworthy. Just saying. It's all of it. It's all a stage. It's all a stage.
It is, but those on the stage don't always realize that they're basically dealing in fake information, that they're just supporting a narrative that isn't actually based on facts, but on an agenda to coerce, manipulate the mind of people. But when they do find out and they snap out of it, it's usually like a micro scandal, and then quickly brushed over, move on to the next subject, replace the reporter, and like nothing ever happened. Maybe a lawsuit in the background or something. But they definitely don't like to talk about it when
that
it happens.
reporter, you mean that reporter that was having an affair? She had a problem with what? That reporter that was having an affair? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, the one with the drug offences.
That's the one with the drug problem. She said what now? About what she was reporting on? That reporter with the drug problem?
I don't remember.
All plausible deniability, because what it is, sorry, just before Adam presents, what it is if they can claim that the anchor wasn't aware that the story wasn't correct or wasn't true, then that's plausible deniability. So they can say anything.
So in other words, anchors are there as a tool to offer plausible deniability to the studio. In other words, it's on the anchor. We don't have to, as a studio, put into retraction. The reporter was under the impression that it was true at the time.
Right, and all the anchor has to do is say, well, at the time I believed it, and all the weight's off him. So there's like no repercussions, even when it's blatantly false.
Of course. I mean, these rules are only in place by the people who are subject to the rules. So the fact that they fall in their favour isn't really shocking, is it? Or at least it isn't to me. Like
I found the act that was removed in 1987. It was called the Fairness Doctrine, and it was introduced in 1949. It was a policy that required the holders of broadcast licenses both to present controversial issues of public importance and to do so in a manner that was honest, equitable, and balanced. The FCC eliminated the policy in 1987 and removed the rule that implemented the policy from the Federal Register in August 2011.
I owe someone
Right,
an
it was
apology.
kind of-
Hold on.
It was like
Hold
the
on.
it was like the Hippocratic Oath of doctors, but for journalists.
Hold on, I owe
And they
10th
just-
an apology. You there, 10th? Yeah, you there, 10th? He's disappeared.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
So the other day, we had a little argument where I said, "Are you joking? TV was definitely not more wholesome. How dare you assume such nonsense?" Well, at least in the rhetoric, there's a lot more weight being given to your side of the argument based on what's just been read out by Rams. So I apologise. It seems like you were right.
It's just relative, Nathan.
I got the 8 and the 7
like that,
confused in my mind.
Nathan.
Sorry. Say again?
I just like that about you, Nathan. You always seem to admit when you're wrong or when something changes. You're very quick to do that, and that's good.
What?
Nice to see.
He is our anchor.
Yeah, we're chained to the show because of him.
It's nice to know this information. Look, if the script says it, then it's right, and David Weiss has absolutely no comeback. It's on me. I get it. Now I understand my position.
Oh, boo.
Don't let it get to your head, Nathan.
Did you miss it?
I did.
Oh, buoy.
Buoy?
Anchor, buoy.
Oh, buoy, anchor.
Buoy.
Oh, God.
It was punny.
God, do I have to weigh? If I have to weigh in on this anymore, come on.
Nah.
It's terrible.
All right. No, okay. It's okay. What I was trying to say is that they can only get away with whatever they want to do with the society and again, this could be geographical or, different to different cultures. What the masses have already been conditioned to accept. So, in the early days of television, they couldn't put the stuff on that they're putting on today. So they didn't. So they get you hooked on it because they're putting on stuff that you would agree with, wholesome family type of things. Okay. And then once they get you hooked on it, look what's happened now. So that's all I was trying to say.
Hooked.
But they still do that. They still do that to this day with like pop stars, right? When they're doing great and they're all pure and wholesome, then they get the big contracts, they continue, and then suddenly they get nasty, they get sinful, and then it's all just garbage.
No,
That's happened so many times.
It's straight out of the Psychopath's playbook. It's called love bombing. Look it up. Anybody familiar with that term? Love bombing? Anybody familiar?
Yeah, it's like
Is that like a honeypot?
Yeah,
No.
It's like a texting situation someone can do with another person.
It's not.
Love
No,
bombing
exactly.
is after someone assaults you.
Okay, I'll explain.
that-
Just let me explain. I can do it in 2 minutes. So, you might have experienced this yourself. You meet somebody, and they're everything you could want in a person. They're just like you. They've got all the same interests. They've got all the same desires. They've got the same motivations. They've got the same goals. You can't quite believe how lucky you are. Now, not only is this person just like you, they shower you with all the love and gifts and support and emotion you could ever want. It's like ecstasy. It's wonderful. Yeah? It's like a drug.
And then the fall.
Right. So then when that is taken away, you remember the drug. You want more. So you go back for more. Give me
That's
more of the drug I
literally-
remember.
yes.
Who's spoiling my point? Is it you, crack villain, new boy?
It's because it's something that I've recently went through, so I'm sort of fucking empathizing with it. Sorry, I saw.
Have you had a psychopath girlfriend?
In the past, yeah.
The psychopaths love
So
bomb.
have I.
Yeah, basically, it's the point that they take it away from you, but you have a memory of the great times and all the. No, the person was wonderful in the beginning. They did blah, 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 blah. It was excellent. Yes, now they're beating the crap out of me and abusing me mentally and physically and gaslighting me, but I remember how good it was in the times, and occasionally, I still see that side of him or her. They came back the other day out of the blue with some beautiful flowers and told me how gorgeous I was. Yeah?
That's
Love
They
called
bombing.
also
Stockholm
do it.
syndrome.
Maybe it can be that way again.
Exactly. Maybe it can be that way again with TV. You don't have to fall out of love with
Well,
TV.
they
It can be
always
that
do-
way. You can have Knight
Is
Rider
this being
again.
recorded?
They always do the love bombing after. They always do the love bombing after they've assaulted them. That way, it reminds them of before. My wife, her previous boyfriend, done that to her for almost 3 years, and it becomes for the victim at the time of the love bombing. There's a part of them that feels superior in that moment because it's like, so it's it works both ways. It's not just the psychopath, but it's also the victim gets something from it too, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy at all.
Not at all, because we're talking about narcissists and empaths. We're talking about two people at the opposite ends of extremes. So the victims of psychopaths are empaths, people with a high degree of empathy. And when a psychopath mirrors that, it's a trait they don't possess. But the person who sees that their generosity and their kindness is mirrored in this person, they'll latch on to that with, they'll sink their hooks deep into the psychopath. They want it bad. And it's also equally as unhealthy. But, let's lighten it.
Hang on.
The psychopath is a usurper.
Hang on. Yeah,
Okay,
crack
I
bill
like
it's been recorded, just to let you know. No, I'm saying crack bill and one piece been recorded.
You're breaking up, 10th. Terrible.
Yeah, he interrupted me for that.
Is it still being recorded?
Always. If I'm here, yes.
Yeah.
But
Always assume you're being recorded.
I was hoping we'd segue to Knight Rider, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the psychopath, they're usurpers. That's what they are. That's why people like the current royal family usurped the position off of the real royal family. If you know what I mean, they're not. It's stuff like that. Usurpers are always psychopaths. Psychopaths are always usurpers. They're pretending to be something they're not. They'll copy what the real thing is. It's like they're copying. They're like copying what the real thing is, just to get their foot in the door and pretend that they're that thing, but they're not really that.
And then destroy it.
Yeah.
And then
Who's
destroy
the
it.
psychopath?
Well,
Johnny
Not,
Depp.
not necessarily destroy it. Let's just hold on before we get too deep into psychopathy. Adam's had something presented on screen for quite some time. Are you still with us, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, probably gone, but it's just to add, it was the bit what you guys were talking about amendments in law. This was the bit I think I remembered and probably more pertinent for what's going off now. It's interesting when you read the Associated Press's claim they label as false, how if you actually read the facts, there really isn't much difference between the two, just subtle wording. So the claim was Obama signed a law in 2012 allowing the government's propaganda in the US, making it perfectly legal to lie to the American people. That was AP's assessment is false. In 2013, Obama signed legislation that changed the US Information and Education Act of 48, also known as the Smith-Mundt Act. The amendment made it possible for some materials created by the US Agency for Global Media, the nation's foreign broadcasting agency, to be disseminated in the US. The way they describe it as truth. A post circulating on Facebook with a photo of Obama falsely states he repealed a ban on government propaganda in the US when he signed the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013. This is the bit that's interesting. The amendment did not repeal the Smith-Mundt Act, but rather lifted some restrictions on the domestic dissemination of government-funded media, which to me is a straight claim that we're going to allow propaganda on the US people through this amendment in the Act.
But would you not agree, Adam, that that's reported as such, and to assume otherwise would be absolutely absurd in the first instance? That's the sole purpose. So this is gaslighting in and of itself, isn't it?
I think yes and no. I think it has a level in the moment in terms, like I say, for me, it was explicitly it was stuff could be challenged to say that's government propaganda and in the US and shouldn't be disseminated through the media outlets. What this is allowing slipping of standards or a lifting of some restrictions, as they call it, to allow further, because American press is supposed to be freedom of speech. This is quite the opposite. This is a government mandate wrapped up as a news story from free press, and that's kind of what I see there.
Let me try and
it's like quantitative easing.
Let me try and repackage my position. You keeping up with Jaron at the moment? Adam?
Not really.
Okay, he explained a scenario with his pharmacy work that he did about 10 or 15 years ago. And they were forcing the managers to do more work than they should by having them annually paid and doing lots of work that a normal worker would do while they cut the staff. I'm sure you can understand. I'm not asking you for a unionised opinion. Nevertheless, he's explaining how once that came to a head, that they were actually breaking the law and had been all along, the law changed. They repositioned their contracting and offered them a measly amount of money to shut up about it or lose their job. So basically nothing changed. Now, if you look at the same scenario paralleled with what you've described, that would be to say there's always been and always will be government propaganda put through the media outlets. But potentially, because there's something on the books that says they shouldn't, it technically stands in breach of it. Let's change the law so what's always been going on and will always continue now isn't capable of being moaned about, as opposed to will stop and has started or was going to end and has now begun. None of that. Nothing's changed. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Well, the old boss had to run the show the same as the new one and vice versa. And during his time, he's gone, it'd be better if I wasn't being moaned at about this. So I'll just change this bit and publicise it. Because you've got this information through the media. That's why I can't sell it any more than I have. I'm not going to be wrong on this.
I agree. I like the point you make. I don't. Yes, the system wasn't a bastion of purity, was it? It wasn't this thing that it's alluded to. So
yeah.
Kind of.
Exactly. It's not like this was signed and suddenly a den of thieves appeared out of nowhere and there was people inside rubbing their hands going, hooray, we can now use propaganda. It's like, no, nothing changed. Literally nothing changed.
Well, couldn't it be argued that the entire purpose of building the means of worldwide communication was solely for the purpose of propaganda?
Yeah, like radio originally.
Right. Yeah. So controlling information is just about everything. If you want to be in control of people, you have to control the information they receive.
Exactly. Precisely. And the people who are saying how the rules should be governed in terms of how this information is disseminated, they're the people disseminating the information. So, any restructuring of their own rules, it's just going to be to make their life a bit more convenient. It's not going to change anything. They're just doing what they do. And that's what it's for. That was the case when radio first started mass communicating with all the people. Well, you used it immediately to win elections, right? You don't need to go out door to door anymore. You don't need to put flyers up. You can just pick up a microphone. How convenient. And then you can mass communicate. Oh, but hold on. They can also... No, they can't. Quick, let's make it so that it's regulated and there's rules about who can do it. Us. Yeah, that's immediately how it all begins.
Well, not only that, but you could, I don't know, broadcast saying that someone fired a phallus-shaped rocket into a second law of thermodynamics violation to land on a rock on a begging the question path around a sphere without an R radius.
Exactly.
And people believe it because they heard it on the radio.
Yeah, you can have that giant dick chasing a virgin.
But they heard it on the radio. It must be true.
Right. I saw it on TV.
They have a radio.
Exactly. I've exhausted that one, but government propaganda. I just don't subject myself to it, but that makes me ignorant also. You can't win either way. If you don't know about the propaganda to know that you shouldn't be paying it any attention, you're ignorant, and people say, well, don't you know that we're currently on orange alert for Scary Monsters number 1573 from their playbook? I'm like, no, I didn't know that orange alert was in effect. Go on.
Well, that's where I've found myself recently. I've tried to unplug completely from the propaganda, but then obviously you end up behind the curve on it, all of it, and effectively you end up like in this position of ignorance, and then this position of ignorance aids toward a better psychological state, right? Because you're not feeding into the fear mongering, and that's what they want from us, is they want us reactive, right? You know, I often say that in fact, actually, using game theory 101, right, they effectively implicate us toward what they want us to do, right? The directive that they want us in is usually ushered in via the media, right? So I'm like unplugged from the media, okay? But then I don't understand the directionality in which everybody else is about to go. So then I have no way of actually self-righting the ship for my own circle, for my own family. So it becomes almost like, how do I, you know, inculcate myself into it at the same time as out of it? You know, it is very, very confusing.
It isn't because if you're socialized, the people around you are very much connected to the Matrix, and the propaganda will disseminate it to you in their own special way. And hearing it from them in that very special way, as I describe it, is very different to hearing it firsthand in the formatted manner that the propaganda present it. Obviously, everyone's an individual and they've all got their own take on whatever the current propaganda is. But I like hearing it from a third-party source, because normally they'll give it with their, not necessarily a conscious thing, but they'll give it with their own spin. In other words, they'll go, oh, I don't agree with how this, that, and the other's happening. Do you know what I mean? They'll present it in a way that they're putting their own spin on it in almost every case. You know, they're not just going to say, I read a report in the paper that said X, Y, and Z. They'll invite you to discuss it with them based on how they disagree or agree with a certain aspect of it. So normally when you're getting this third-party information, not only are you not taking it in the manner they want you to take it in, with the big red, highlighted, underlined headline that's most important for you to take in immediately, even if you're not buying the paper, you'll get that anyway as you walk past every damn shop in Britain, because they're always outside, aren't they, with the headlines easily readable from a bus as you fly past at 30.
Of course.
So yeah, so you get it anyway. You don't. What I'm saying is, I quickly learned you don't need it, and you won't suddenly feel like you won't know what's happening. Oh no, there's a lockdown. Yeah, you'll find out. Trust me. You don't need the media. So TV, sod it off. You don't need it. Same with all the RSS feeds, all the news feeds. I try and turn them off. And what you'll find is, even if you turn all that shit off, somehow your iPad or iPhone or your Google whatever will have it somewhere, whether you want it or not. And so
or
at some level,
random person will start to talk to you about it, just like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
That's
why I was talking about myself.
Sorry. That's why they won't be getting rid of newspapers, because newspapers are a headline that you can read when you're in the shop walking past the shop window, and that's all they need. They just need the headline. So all those little bits matter. All those little tiny bits matter. Even if the amount of people that read newspapers have gone way, way down, it doesn't matter. It's the headline. I would say what you'll notice is the headlines have become bigger on newspapers now than they were before. I would say that's what happened.
Absolutely. So the entire page. The entire page. I don't read papers. I never have. I've never bought a paper in my life. Not interested. But I know what a paper is. And I see them at the shop when I'm buying my kids' sweets. And I know what the headlines look like these days. They take up the entire front page. Literally. You might have, if you're lucky, an eighth of the picture. That's it. Or you'll have the picture that's being referred to with the entire page over the top of the picture overlaid. So massive headlines.
Well, can I just ask them, what do I do for myself then? Because like you said, you'll hear it from the third party, right? Well, I'm not in that position. Okay, so for myself, this is what I'm saying. I'm not hearing it from a third party. You know, my family members, immediate family members and friends, every single one of them are flat earthers. They listen to your show every single day, right? They're listening to me continuously on live streams. They're listening to people like Brian. They're listening to people like Adam Meakin. They're listening to people like Arwin. You know, they're listening to the 10th. Man, they're not listening to the world in the same way. You know, my family and my friends are not doing this. So like for myself, it's very difficult. And then obviously the way in which I make my own money, I don't make money in a way in which I have to mix with these third parties. So that's why I'm struggling, I guess, to find some sort of happy medium in which where I find...
Struggling? You lucky bastard. I mean, what are you talking about? That sounds great. So you never.
It is great. It is great. But like I said about the self-righting of the ship, Nathan, where I'm in a position of ignorance of what's actually going on in the world in terms of the propaganda, right? And then the propaganda, it affects the group as a large. So I go out into my community, and when I go out into my community, it just seems like something that is completely a separate paradigm. And I'm obviously one of these people that I wish to reach out into the community, and I wish to self-write it. And I would love to think that I could effectively change this. And I know I can do this because obviously that's why I'm in the position that I'm in, where, like I said, I'm not receiving it from a third party. That's because I've been effective at making sure the people around me are receiving the information in the way that I'm receiving it, but also understanding of it. So
I could comment on that for you, Crack Villain. If
somebody wants to present something, though, so who's got the screen presented?
No, that's me. I just, dude, since we've been talking about media and information coming from the media, I just thought that this historical quote was kind of relevant to that. It still stands to this day. If you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. If you read the newspapers, you're misinformed. From Mark Twain.
I have another perspective on it, but I want Tenth to go ahead with what he was going to say.
Yeah, we've bantered this around on the show a lot. I would say the way I approach it, Crack Villain, is I approach it like a soldier would. There's a war for the mind.
Yes.
And so act like a soldier. You need reconnaissance. You know it's coming from the enemy, but you need to know what their next move is. So when I scan the internet for what's current misinformation, it's not affecting me because I've already identified the enemy. If you don't do it, then you, like you all been saying, it's like, well, no, I've checked out of society because I found out society is lying to me. Well, yeah, that's true. You can check out, I guess, but if you take the mindset of a soldier and you say, I'm in a battle for the mind that I have and the minds of the people I love, I need to know how the enemy is running his show, his playbook. So from that point, it's not going to affect you in a bad way.
So I can do that in a very good and easy fashion. I didn't check out a society. What it was is there were floods in my area, and everything effectively in terms of my internet, in terms of anything electronic, was completely destroyed. And so I was effectively taken away from the internet for, I would say, roughly around about 3 months, right? And then I started to find some solace in that. And in finding solace in that, it almost became addictive to be in that, and to go back to it, which is what I'm doing now, was very difficult. It was difficult because obviously this psychological strain of doing so, partly my area of expertise is that, the war of the mind. We were speaking about this the other night with Arwen, of how, we have, war doctrine, right? We have forms of psychological warfare that are cast upon us all the time. And the undoing of that, or even the fighting into it or fighting against it and navigation around it, is very important. And it's something that maybe that's like, I'm glad that you made that comment. So like, I do look at these things like a soldier, and I guess that's how I will go forth. I will soldier on in that manner.
Well, the thing about it is this, corruption is always increasing. So, like as we're talking about, or as Nathan was saying earlier, is that they just change the rules when there's a problem. It's not that the corruption wasn't there beforehand; they've just increased the corruption a little bit by changing the rules. There's every couple of weeks, my mother comes along with her partner, and her partner starts asking me about, you sure about this thing, and what about that thing? And I don't know anything about it, because I don't pay attention to the news, I just ignore it as much as possible. But someone will always tell you about it, or as Nathan says, it'll turn up on your phone or some nonsense. And that's how it works. And as long as people pay attention to it, then they'll end up in situations like we're in now in the world. So, that is what caused the situation we have now. Without people listening to that, we wouldn't have the situation we have now. So
now, Brian, I see your point, Brian, but I would disagree a little bit with it. What you're saying is true, but at the same time, when you know that's the tactic and that's what they're doing, when that happens to me, I say, well, I heard a little bit about it. So obviously I'm role playing here. I've heard a little bit about it. Tell me what you know. And if they start explaining it, I could find out by the way they're explaining it where the paradigm is. And that is always a good thing, to have a conversation with another human being who's eager to tell you something, because it's something they're either researched, passionate about, or scared about because it just came on the news or something. And so it's obvious it's misinformation. It's obvious it's fear porn. It's obvious. How are you going to help your fellow man if you can't talk to him about it?
See, right there's where me and you.
That was kind of my point, is that exactly that. So thanks for the comments, guys. I actually do appreciate it. And I also like to say I appreciate being invited onto this panel, because it's very difficult to find individuals that are like yourselves, and not only just like yourselves, but not not dismissive individuals, but dismissive to absolute divisive and rubbish rhetoric, and it's it seems to be now having this conversation, which is obviously in a different tangent to when talking about the scientific method, or the housekeeping questions and all of that stuff. But I'm saying, it seems that you guys are thinking in all of these different directions, and I'm younger, right? And when I say I'm younger, and Adam's told me to stop bragging about my age, but I'm not gonna mention my age, but it is nice to have you guys maybe potentially around, because it is difficult for me at my age. It really is. It's hard to know where to look, what to look at, how to look at it also, and it's just increasingly helpful. And I'm not saying that I've been like a massive fan of your show, Nathan, where I've watched it every day for years. I haven't. That's the thing. It's been
off with his head.
Off with his head. Well, it's more that it wasn't something that was actually drawn to my attention. It wasn't something that was there that I knew about because of the unplugging, right? Of over 4 months where I was away from the internet. And before that, it was very much so I was disenfranchised with Flat Earth as a whole. And that was due to the format in which I was on the platform that I was on. This wasn't one where we could use our voice. This was one where we could be continually strawmanned. And it was when the days of the WWF fights of Flat Earth, right? Where you would have a Flat Earther that would effectively, I didn't even believe they were Flat Earthers, and they would be being smacked down and DDT'd by a few Globers. And it felt like a setup. It was like, whoa, like this wouldn't happen if I was involved in this conversation, because I wouldn't allow for it, right? And so I was disenfranchised with the platform in which I was able to express my views. So I dipped out of that. And then as I dipped out of that, I stopped listening to the various channels, because the various channels I felt were very much in line with the things that I was seeing on Facebook. And then this goes as far as people like Eric DeBay and, Jaranism, all of these people. But Jaron is brilliant now. And I'm starting to listen to a few of his videos, and I'm just like, wow, this guy's really stepped it up a gear, right? And it's good to get plugged back in, but to be plugged back in through the avenue, which is you guys, as people that could be preliminary readers of, the propaganda that is out there, right? And who and what not to listen to. It's been increasingly helpful, because I've been able to listen to what you guys are saying, and then I've been able to utilize that in order to extrapolate where it is that I should be looking. And it's been brilliant, because I've been, I guess, I've not been washed over with the amount of rubbish that I would have beforehand, and it's been increasingly helpful, and I appreciate it.
Hey, before we move on from this topic, I was just wanting to add in, there's another way you can look at all this, and you can look at it from sort of like how my wife does. And she takes the information in that's given to her by the news, and she looks at it, and she takes it in, and then she says to herself, how are they wanting me to feel? And based on that, she made a prediction about a stock that was tied to well, it was a shooting that was on TV. I don't want to go into all that, but she said, well, I bet you metal detectors are going to get, the people that make metal detectors are going to, you know, their companies are going to go up in value.
Revolving door. Yes, the revolving door.
But, you know, if we would have placed that bet, I think we'd have made it like 1,000% profit because of that company's growth because the law changed. I think in California. So you know, there's
just like
you
with
can
the
look at
body
it that way.
scanners. Remember, that was also a scam.
Yeah, with the underpants bomber, you know,
Exactly.
the guy that passed the legislation through Congress for after the underpants bomber effectively happened, he ended up being a board member on the one company that was able to provide the product that was needed in order for the scanning to happen, and you know, and that was such an obvious setup. Right, and that even goes back to people like, you know, the changing of the rights, you know, the antecedent to, let's say, the writing of the Patriot Act and what went into that. And you know, but then we talk about people like Ted Wyszynski, for instance, you know, the Unabomber. So, and when we look at it in that way, we're like, whoa, like this is really scary, right? Because they knew where he was. They allowed him to go about his business for God knows how long, right? And they allowed that to happen.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Well, you know, you could, like I'm saying, the sociopathic side of me kind of says, well, if you know they're doing it, you know, you could just kind of make a little profit on the side from doing it too. Just see what they're doing and place your bets.
Exactly. This is like something that's happened recently in the United Kingdom. There is a massive, how would I put it, shortage of pharmacists, for instance, right? So like the sociopathic side of me as well, and I'm using that as an example, right? There's another thing that's occurring like that also with the buses, right? And I had written a business plan a long time ago, and this business plan is an extremely good one, but I said to myself that it's only going to be a good business plan if certain things happen. And I wrote a list of 5 things that needed to happen, and then I wrote a list of 5 things that would be exceedingly good to happen for this business plan. And guess what? Every single one of those things had happened because I'd predicted that they would happen based on what I was looking at, right? And so now it's like, right, do I make profit from this? I would like Nathan's take on that, actually, because I believe Nathan is sort of, again, who should be the arbiters of the new world, and what should it look like? And I would say that I trust myself way more than the others to do so, because I understand my own heart. So again, I feel like I should probably lean full force into that, and do it and go forth and do it, because if not, somebody else will. So it's difficult. I don't know what Nathan's take would be on that, right? You know,
I don't know. Don't ask me advice. The only thing I'd say is you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. So take a chance potentially.
I have something to say about it.
That's the advice right there I needed.
I got something to say about it. Right. So it all depends on what it is that you see coming, right? So when it comes to metal detectors, I wouldn't say like, oh my God, how dare you invest in that? Because they're not harmful. They might not be all that useful, right? But for example, the body scanners were actually harmful. They were harmful to the people that get through it.
How do you know?
How do we know? Yeah, we don't know that the metal detectors are
because they've been used for
stay away
half a
from
century.
Yeah,
hold on.
Stuff like that's dubious, isn't it? But if you stay away from investments like the Church of England make, like, you know, landmines and things like that,
Exactly,
you'd be all right, crack.
Well, what it is that I'm talking about doing would change the face of travel in the United Kingdom forever. That's what it would do. If it's something that would work and it was something that I could do effectively, and I'm talking about taking this all the way up to the parliamentary level, and effectively meaning that to aid the business in and of itself, I would make it legislatively so that it would make it basically like the revolving door. I would make it so that it would almost be imperative that it would happen for me. It's imperative it would be imperative that it happens based upon the legislative changes. And there's this, like I said, there's a play that I can play on here because of the current climate. And effectively it would be brilliant. And in terms of monetarily for myself, it would be more than brilliant. It could be more than brilliant for lots of people, in fact.
Speaking of brilliant, I'm going to give you a few stats. just because it's show 1500. The channel that this show's broadcast on today hit 22,000 subscribers. So as it stands, although often when you hit a giant number, somebody will unsubscribe intentionally just to laugh at you. Ha ha ha. You're now back down to 21.9. Anyway, as it stands, as of the time of this recording, the show has 22,007 subscribers, and that milestone was hit today on the day of broadcast. I was hoping, although it isn't actually the case, that the channel would also hit 6 million views today, although it hasn't. It's about 60,000 short, and the channel gets about 75 to 90,000 views per month. So you can do the math and say it's going to be a couple of weeks before it hits 6 million. But yeah, it's a shame it hasn't hit that milestone as well. But then again, 22,000 subscribers on the day I hit 15,000 shows, or 1,500 shows, 15,000 shows, Jesus. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate.
Well, maybe that's
Good
something
job,
I can help
Nathan.
with.
Good job.
Yeah,
As well. Good
congratulations.
job, bro. Yeah, congrats. Like, you've done a brilliant and stellar job here. You know, maybe that's something I could try and help with reining in some of the people that are the stragglers of different various places that I'm at, and hopefully we can try and get you know, more and more people to subscribe to your channel, and you know, more and more people that would subscribe to the Patreon and all that stuff, because it's something that's needed, right? This is something that is needed. We need a platform out there that effectively does continue to harp on this point being that science is misrepresented continually, and people are tricked into this idea that science is something that it isn't. And in doing so, they effectively are able to implicate people into positions of believing that they have some form of knowledge that they don't, and that's dangerous. That is extremely dangerous. So what you're doing is not just, I would say, not just great for yourself, but it's also benevolent in some way.
I would summarize it
thank you.
differently. How to deal with an anti-flat earther, because that's going to be a skill in demand for a whole bunch of people.
But it's exactly how that is training, and you offer that, and maybe that's why you've said it, because you'll get some props now, right? I'm not reading between the lines too much. But yeah, absolutely, you provide that in respect to being able to, in a controlled manner, show how the tactics of our opponents on the anti-flat Earth side actually is, and without seeing it in a controlled manner, you just get the chaos that's trying to be reined in whilst a debating point's trying to be won, which isn't necessarily as educational. You've got to have that sort of control over, yeah, this is called a circle jerk. This is a fundy-dosey-do. This is the begging the question fallacy being employed. This is Arwen dropping it in early and then trying to chant through every objection that comes and object about the objections, etc., etc., etc. You've got to see those tactics in some kind of controlled way. But for Arwen being here, we probably wouldn't get it. We might occasionally when someone plays devil's advocate, or I did myself, but Arwen can do it consistently. I mention it and highlight it because, and it speaks to your point, Crack Villain, I tend to find that in terms of growth of the channel, you can't do anything. I can't do anything for that, literally. What I can do is pay it forward and hope it comes back my way. In other words, today I shouted out Spurs Chemo. In the past, Spurs literally put an advert up for this show, sent subscribers my way by putting an advert up. I did actually ask him to do it, but he could have said no, but for the fact that I hopefully am perceived to be shouting him out on a reasonable basis every so often when I see something on his channel that I like, I'd hope that, you know, other people who have got a channel go, oh, you know what? Why not? I've got a channel. I've got 10,000 subscribers. I've got 1,000 subscribers. That's 1,000 people that may not have heard of the Flat Earth Debate. And yeah, hopefully if I shout him out, someone else might see me doing it and do the same for me. That's my logic, at least, because I don't think I can.
Nathan, can I just
hold on one sec. I just want to ask something because it's semi-related to that with Durst Clock, Moon, and Sun app. Is there any way that he can have someone design an algorithm that, like how YouTube used to be, but through that app, so you can watch YouTube videos, but through the lens of that algorithm?
If only.
Oh God!
No,
disclaimer for YouTube's terms of service. I'm not encouraging people to go off platform.
No, he means the original Google algorithm, which was really good, but they ruined it. The algorithm still exists, but you can't.
Look, if this
it's
is
gonna
about
have
having
to filter through what they got right now, so you can't just put the original filter over it. It doesn't work. Still, things are going to be locked.
Is this really about how it used to be star ratings and now it's thumbs up, thumbs down? Is this what this is really all about?
Effectively, yes.
Oh man, I've almost forgot about that.
At the end of the show, Nathan, if when we're off air, there is something I would like to say to you, and something that may be helpful toward the directive of what you were literally just talking about, how you can pay it forward, the thing that happened with Spurs Chemo, and yeah, like that would be good to have a conversation with you about, because it's something that's
you won't. You'll have to tell me now. As soon as I do my outro, you know when I said if I'm here on recording.
Yes.
Guess what?
I don't want to say it on recording. It's something that is, because then it would be, again, it would be me being presumptive of the nature of what they're willing to do, versus what could actually be accomplished. And I don't want to actually put that onto them until I effectively have clearance from them. You understand what I'm trying to say? So, but it could be something that them. And I say them. So, and it's something that's already happened with the channel. This channel's already been shouted out by those individuals and by that channel in a big way. But I have avenues in which to be connected to those individuals. So, due to the nature of what it is that my family does. So, it's just something that would be incredibly good for the show.
I literally cannot make out what you just talked about. That was the most meta description.
That's the point. That's the point. I couldn't say it.
Hey, new guy. I understood them. I understood them completely.
I'm sure you did.
I have to say something. Hello. Hey, Nathan.
Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, new guy. No need to be like disrespectful or anything, but you keep cutting off Arwen and your whole panel. You're talking, like, you keep talking and dominating the conversation. Like, you have a lot of good to say, but you're dominating.
He's just excited to be here. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I know, but
it's his first appearance.
Panel members are upset.
It's his
first time on the main panel. That's all it is.
Something about it.
I get it, Eric.
Great.
Hold on. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, Eric. I get it. I know what you're trying to say, but without sounding condescending and telling you to relax and things like that, which I don't want to do. I'm just going to say, yes, I get what you're trying to get across to him. But by the same token, he's just excited because he's on the main panel. That's all it is.
I know, but someone needs to say it. The other people aren't going to say it, but I'll say it. And I want to hear what Arwen is saying and what.
Okay, before you say it,
cutting him off.
Have you already said it, or is there something else you wanted to add?
He said it. I can slow down.
You don't have to do anything. It's all good.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just I'm noticing it happening and no one's saying anything. So
no, it's fair.
I want to hear what everyone else says.
He's got a lot to say.
Yeah,
he's in a position to say it, and we're allowing him. And at the point that it annoys you, Eric, by the same token, you've got every right to say so. So thank you very much. But
he's going to be a little nervous, This is like the first time on stage. He still has to get used to Neil, for example.
He's been in the show. He's been in the show before, but it's just there's effort that's been made to get him to this position so that he doesn't have to deal with fundy muting. So I like what Crack Villain's got to say, and I'm like, yeah, when you're in Discord, you have to deal with fundy muting. So I want to hear what you've got to say, rather than you being part of fundy muting that's going on from some fundy in Discord. So here's the G+ link. Now he's here. He's like, yay! Look, everyone, it's the panel. So he's got a lot to say.
I'm just a bit excited, dude. That's all it is, dude. All right. I take no disrespect.
I get it.
Yeah,
it's
anybody in Discord. I was just going to say, anybody in Discord listening that hasn't ever been on the show before, go back to a day when there was actually a baller in here debating, and it's like you're experiencing two different conversations. You have the one that you hear from Discord, and then the one you'll hear on YouTube, and they sound nothing alike. Absolutely nothing alike.
And
It's,
after Nathan
all you-
rounds out, the after show, then it's disconnected. So it's just a Google panel, and no more Discord because that all comes through Nathan. So it's different. 2 different rooms, 1 show.
Maybe I can talk now.
Go ahead, Neil.
Oh, it's amazing. Listen, you'll know when somebody's annoying because I'll jump in and say, "Shut up!" That grill is fine.
Yes, that's right. Neil is the arbiter of how irritating people are, aren't you, Neil?
Yes, including my.
Yes, you are the avatar of nuisance.
And Arwen, you should talk.
Oh, here we go. Was that just a sideways way of getting a jab in at Arwen, Neil?
Yes.
Arwen's ace.
I know it's very frustrating when you favor me for interruption.
I just realised what's happening. I'm glad you've done that, Eric, because you've spared me from the commenters by doing it vocally, verbally. So, every time somebody new gets added to the G Plus panel, there's typically a stream of comments that moan about that person. And also, the anti-flat earthers will pick on that person as the newest panel member and bully them and tell me how they shouldn't be there and how they're bringing down the show, how they're going to ruin the show, how the show is going to end because of Crack Villain being there. The standards have got so much lower since you added Crack Villain.
Or it's going to end him. It's dangerous to him. Like, oh, Crack Villain, you don't know what you're doing. If you stay on this panel, you'll never have a proper social life ever again. Everybody's going to hate you.
Yep.
They do that too.
I've had it for Neil, I've had it for Arwen, I've had it for 10th, a little bit for Brian. I can't remember any for John specifically, but, he's on and off on the show. The only one I haven't ever had that from, and it would be an outrage if it would be Adam. I can't remember a single instance. But you will get that.
I've got
Crack
many
Villain.
haters. I've got many haters, and I'm very...
Adam had it from another group.
Oh, of course he did. Yeah, Adam's been subject to it, just not from this corner of the woods.
You need to represent why you had it about me. It's because of the puns.
Well, it was that and the usual stream of bullshit, actually, 10th.
And that was what?
I posted it.
That you don't know what
you, Nathan.
That you don't know what you're talking about. That you're generally ignorant of every subject you ever speak about ever, and as a result of your ignorance, the show's terrible and the show's being brought down. Now, it's true for when you first started to join when you were first on the panel. Not true anymore. I mean, they'll still attack you for, but typically
That's
it becomes. We become like Borg. The panel become like Borg. In other words, when you're making a really cracking argument, as you are at the moment with the Sextant, that just becomes ascribed to me and the show. So the objection will be directed at me. And even when people do replies, video replies, they'll do a video reply and put me in the title and talk about me and how I've got it wrong and then play you talking. In other words, we are like Borg at some stage. But prior to that point, they're like, no, don't assimilate this person into Borg of FED. They're bad. They'll make it evil. It'll die as a result. I get that every time. Almost every time.
Yeah. Yeah, man, don't assimilate 10th, man. Everybody's just going to be punning. It's not even going to be about flat Earth anymore, just punning.
So, for example, we'll get, it'll just become about politics if you have Crack Villain on. You'll end up getting copyright strikes, blah, 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 blah. That's what we'll get.
I was a comment warrior, so, I think that's how I initially got in.
It's more likely that it will become about, warfare, self-defense, weapons and things like that.
How highbrow do you think my audience is?
Well, that should work. Well, Nathan always talks about cars, so we could get a road warrior then.
Yeah, dude, that would be great.
That's more the level. If you want to be liked by the general audience, keep the subjects about cars, films, TV, politics, general stuff that's on the headlines. Then you'll be liked universally and hated universally. In other words, it'll balance out. But if you've got anything specific that you're into, that will be the downfall of this show, according to the commenters.
I'm not bothered, Crack, whichever way it goes. But I have already noticed those surreptitious age jokes already in this afternoon.
Yeah,
so as long as they disappear,
Yeah, I made sure. Well, the reason I say that is because I'm trying to sort of allude to the fact that I'm sort of apologizing for myself for being dim-witted in the sort of shadow of you guys. And I take that due to obviously the experience in which you guys have comparatively to myself. So that's sort of more the position. I didn't, I'm not saying it's like a joke of like, haha, I'm younger than you guys. It's more, I wish I was at your standard and at your level in terms of my understanding and obviously my experience in life.
All right. Owen calls
Yeah, but
Temple
nobody's
all the
made
time.
it. Hold on. Nobody's made it. Nobody's made it here until you are a character on that DRTRH guy. So I'm not in the panel.
Oh, Darth.
He just called us all old. He just called us.
Yeah, here we go. I was going to lean on that.
Everybody here old.
No, he didn't.
No, but I have another standard for that, Neil. I think that you're not really properly a part of this show until you can no longer find your own YouTube channel on the first search bar, basically the first search page when you look for your own name on YouTube. That's when you're really part of this show.
Okay, so I should create a YouTube then, maybe.
I don't know. Hold on. Is that allowed at 13?
Okay.
I don't know. I think you've got to be 14.
Letter from your mum and dad.
Oh wait, I've got to be 14. Okay, wait there.
No, 12.
Yeah, I should probably.
Is it 12? You're all good.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
That's 12 plus.
12 plus. You're all good.
12 plus. Okay, I'm all good. Okay.
Just make sure your mum and dad put the restriction thing on, and you'll be good.
My dad's dead, so.
Don't even tell me he's that young.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was horrible.
Lose my shit. I'm jealous.
Well, was that a recent thing as you've dropped it in the conversation now?
No, it wasn't that recent. It was a little while ago, but like I said, you will find the occasional dead dad joke come out of my mouth from me. Yeah, it's because it's something that I feel that sometimes people find it hard to talk about grief. So, and it's something that I've dealt with pretty easily and pretty well. So it's something that I will sometimes maybe speak about.
No, please don't. This isn't the view.
Not here. I won't do it here. No, but I mean, it's because I speak in many different places.
Well, just to change the subject for a second, I found out where all of Arwen's rebuttal videos are going.
This was in the pre-show. Yeah. Arwen, check it out.
I think I told Arwen about it already. I just want to say it again.
Your wife's
misspelling.
Yeah, they've all misspelled your name.
What? Really?
Yes.
So that
got
wasn't
like millions of videos about you, but they're spelled wrong.
Origin.
That reminds me. My youngest said your name beautifully, so I said to her, Harvain. I actually said it better than that, but nevertheless, I said your name as I think it's pronounced correctly. And she copied it. Now, the reason was because I was editing a video. Sometimes I forget that they can just stroll in while I'm editing them, and they do have some bad language in them. But nevertheless, she strolled in, I didn't notice. And it just happened to be at the moment when you're singing, run, run, run from our... And she's like, obviously pricked her ears up, and she's like, what's that? What's that? And I'm like, it's Arvain. And she went, Arvain. Oh, it was just the most sweet thing ever, because you were singing that nursery rhyme.
Yeah, one of the rebuttals that I really need to tell Arwen about, though, is apparently because you discussed Coriolis of bullets and how you would like to test those in America with it. You are now officially on the terrorist watch list for all anti-flat earthers in America. They are on threat level red.
We are talking sub-80 IQ people, aren't we, really? The proper dregs of the thickest of the thick, Arwen.
Well, they really don't need to be afraid of me handling a gun, because I'll just rip their throats out with my bare claws. So.
Okay, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Nobody thinks you're a vicious killer, though, Arwen. The stunned silence is because that Wolverine. I'm never gonna see you as that.
Well, you might dream about it.
No, definitely not.
Good. I'm not
Don't
coming
put
out.
that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
No, I only come after people's dreams when they start stalking me and all that. That's
Why,
when I go inside
Freddy
their head.
Krueger or something?
Yeah, sort of. It's really not that difficult, you know. All you need to do is own their soul, and they give it to you freely. So,
Well, I think there's a difference between living rent-free in a lot of the anti-flat earthers' minds and owning their soul. There's probably quite a
is
distinct...
it?
I think
Is
so.
it?
I don't see myself as owning the souls of the people who spend hours and hours and hours replying to a comment that's one sentence long. You know, they'll go back and forth in there for hours. Like, I don't think I own their soul. I mean, I used to put a metaphor that they're an Oakley cage and at the circus.
Well, that's just you not accepting the ownage, right? Because you do own it. It's just that you don't really want to do anything with it. That's the difference.
I don't know. I think I prefer to go with what Anthony describes it. I'm just living rent-free in their heads.
Right.
I don't own their souls.
I know, but I like to
say
say
they're lost.
it like that.
I say they're
You know?
they're lost souls. And a lot of the things that we describe as being disgusting, I can't remember if it was tied directly to it when John described it, but a lot of their beliefs fundamentally involve vast expanses of nothing. And that leaves you with an outlook of kind of insignificance. In other words, being a completely disgusting human being really serves no purpose, but it's self-fulfilling. In other words, they're fighting for the ability to not care and therefore be a disgusting human being, and to do it they are a disgusting human being. But they're looking to retain their nihilistic outlook on life, and the whole ever-expanding soup of nothingness with a speck of dust in the middle of it, with gas pressure clinging to a speck of dust in a massive vacuum in violation of natural law. They want to retain that because it means, well, it doesn't really matter. You know, all those
Right,
skeletons in my closet, who cares? I don't have to look at them.
That's right. They fight for the freedom against God.
That's pretty
They
much
want
it.
to
I
be
didn't
free
want to...
of it.
Yeah, without scaring off some of the viewers, yeah.
Right. Well, when they do that and they then start obsessing over you, then you own their soul. Not saying that you'll never get rid of it again, right? But
I don't
it's
like
just
this
like,
idea.
yeah, they're handing it to you. You can do it.
I can.
Whatever you want.
No. Let's rephrase it to, potentially they've got their soul on a plate offered to me. That's what you're saying. But that's my description of being a lost soul. And you're saying, well, if you wanted to own their soul, just take it off the plate that's right in front of you. Yeah, that would make me evil. I don't like this. It's one of the few things you've brought up, Owen, so far that's made me uncomfortable.
Well, I think that maybe that's because of the classic associations with it. You don't technically actually own their soul.
Oh,
but
hold
you
on.
got a grip. You got a grip on it in that moment because they just laid it right in front of you.
Yeah, but I'm not grasping for it. Nor
I'm
am I
not telling
looking.
you to throw it in the oven.
Sure,
That's not what I'm saying.
I realise, but what I'm saying is I'm back turned and people tapping me on the shoulder and showing me this platter with a soul on it. I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm looking at this beautiful field. Go away.
Good point. And I agree. When I feel like that, then I'm not interested. Sometimes I got my own personal internal struggles, even from my past, that haunt me. And then suddenly it is kind of appealing until I get out of that mood again and then really enjoy the beauty of nature again. And then I don't feel it like that. And I'm very easy to just forgive very quickly without any consequences.
Just to save.
It kind of depends on my mood, I guess.
Just to save me from this uncomfortable conversation. It's akin to John earlier saying, I don't want to be anyone's guru. And I agreed. Well, it's the same.
Right, you can either be their guru or you can be an evil monolith they must destroy in their minds. It's one of the two, it seems like.
Or both.
Fine line. You're right.
Well, it's easy to live rent free in the baller's head because there's so much space.
Boom, boom.
Hey, QE,
yeah,
by the way.
unfortunately, it doesn't really fit because a lot of space, but not a lot of cohesion. A lot of space also means easily forgotten. ballers are very impulsive, you know, where they let themselves wander with their attention. They're very, like, they don't really care. They don't feel a big mission a lot of the time. Like a purpose, a mission, a personal life mission is kind of rare to find among genuine ballers. Because that's like the thing that it takes away from you, the purpose, the uniqueness, the realization that you are in a world that is specifically designed for us by a all-knowing being that has made it kind of for us as a learning process, right? Well, when you take that all away, now becomes nothing, meaningless, then it's much harder to actually find a cohesive purpose to guide you through life. So they'll be wandering around and just not being serious, trying things out of boredom because they can't find cohesion.
Yeah.
So like in a Matrix analogy.
Idle hands, the devil's plaything. Yeah, lost souls. Yeah, I agree with it all, Arwin.
Right.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, in a Matrix analogy, the anti-flat earthers are like an army of ciphers who just want to be plugged back in, for God's sakes. Why didn't I take the blue pill?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
Because they find themselves in the same pit that we're in, but one man's heaven is another man's hell in this respect. So they're having to contemplate things that they never ever thought they'd have to contemplate, especially as atheists that decided there was no God, there was no real meaning to it, with just a speck of dust. And then suddenly they're pushed down this hill just because they've come across a YouTube video, and they're having to contemplate things that they don't want to contemplate. The very nature of their existence wasn't something that they contemplated. Or if they did, if they studied it, let's say they invested at the other end of the extreme in that, when they were investing in it, there was no warning sticker on the box that said, just so you know, you might eventually find this speech being challenged. They just opened the book and it was like, this is how it is. And now you know more. Well, then they've rolled down the hill and gone, I've got to defend that because it cost. I had to invest in that. My time was invested in it. Now you're saying it's wrong, and I don't want this to be the case. I just want to be back up there, having read the book, walking around with my head in the air, knowing more than everyone else around me. And now you're telling me that's wrong. How dare you?
Old skeletons in the closet thing, huh?
The skeletons in the closet.
A real human being would be happy if someone corrected an error of belief.
Well, that's one of the tricks they play too, is they think that knowledge is a subset of belief.
My point was much simpler. It's pride. If I've been lied to by my university professors after 4 years of university, and say a master's degree after that, and somebody who hasn't gone through that and paid a couple $100,000 for that so-called education comes to me and says, I've been lied to, the initial response is going to be, what? It's going to be like, are you kidding me? You're an idiot for saying that. But the proper response would be, if you're going to have a conversation, why do you say that?
Well, the lied part is probably where they're having the problem, because it's not that they're being lied to, it's just the information they received was incorrect. They're like, lie describes intent, and most of the people teaching it they believe it.
Yeah, like stop. Like the reporters, right?
Yep.
That's to John.
Yeah, I mean, I've never personally heard a professor say that I teach things I don't believe.
I did. That's what my science teacher told me.
Yeah.
It's been part of my story since I shared it. He said, I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it.
No, not a teacher in high school. Hold on. No, professor in college.
Yeah, but we're talking about humans. They're gonna, if they do it in high school, they do it in universities. What changes just because the setting changes?
Yeah, they wouldn't get there.
The level of education. That told me they had to teach it even though they disagreed with it.
You're not going to put yourself
So,
on a higher
yeah.
education course for something that you don't believe in. I just think that's counterintuitive. Unless you're trying to be a mole or something. Speak to Anthony Riley about how that goes.
Right. That's like conspiratorial thought. Like, you know, they're just doing it to move up for some evil gain. They're investing in this because they believe in it. That's why they become professors. Now they may have stopped at teacher because they're like, you know, I'm just going to cut my losses here and get this crappy job teaching kids stuff that I don't believe. Maybe.
Yeah, but John, what's the difference if you're raised in the cult and someone shares the truth, you come out of the cult? What are you going to do with that information? Do you not go back to your family members who are still stuck in that cult
in the cave?
Try to help them?
In the cave?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was high pitched. Check it out. I love it.
Exactly. No, you're going to meet with opposition because you're going to tell them opposite of what their whole paradigm is built on. What I'm trying to stress.
Try to pull you back. That's right.
Like when Anthony went to college and spoke to those kids.
Yeah.
Well,
young adults.
But I'm speaking to intent. You know, like when you say the word lied to.
Yeah, I've talked. That's what I'm trying to address here. There are people within that system that have that intent, and then there's other people in that system that don't have that intent, that just pass on the lie because they don't know it's a lie. But the people at the top know, and that's the intent I'm talking about.
I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe originally.
I've experienced it.
Okay, let's give you an example in our specific domain. Andrew Thomas Young. To lie or not to lie? Is he doing that because he's just affirming his own belief?
That's a perfect example.
That's
lying
a good
requires understanding. Otherwise, you're ignorant and you're letting your emotions drive your decision making.
Was that addressed to me?
Was he lying or was he not?
You're putting it in a false dichotomy. It doesn't have to be a lie or the truth. You can just be incorrect.
Because he understood what he was talking about. He understood the mechanics. If you understand those mechanics, then you know it's technically bending corners. It's incorrect.
Okay, well, Owen's latched in great fashion. Owen's latched onto the point after John's basically annihilated it. So, yeah, it's a false dichotomy in terms of the way we phrased it. You don't have to necessarily pigeonhole into whether or not he's lying. It's about whether or not the information's correct. And if you're going to label it a lie, it's got to have the intent, the malice of forethought to label it that way. Now, when it comes to Andrew Thomas Young, short getting out of crystal ball, how are we going to divine his intent? We can't. We can just scrutinise his information. But we're on that subject, right, John?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when it comes down to the individual, if you're going to call it a lie, you've got to know they had malice of forethought. You can't know, so it's really dangerous if you use these words. And I think when it started, in other words, the original people who disseminated this as a philosophy might have had it bastardized by people who wanted to take power from it. At some stage, there's been nefarious intent. There's no two ways about that. But currently, when it comes to teachers, you can't attribute malice of forethought when they're just teaching the information, even if they don't necessarily believe it. If they're in a position where they're just structurally obliged to do that because it's part of their job, that doesn't also make them a liar. It's part of the narrative, and they might even disclaim it to resolve themselves of any guilt that they might have had in regards to a potential lie that could have been perceived when it's disclaimed to someone like 10th.
Okay,
well, then they become unwilling liars. That's
Excuse me. I thought that was directed at me, and I still haven't.
Go ahead, 10th. Hold on, everyone else. Go ahead, 10th. Hold on. Go ahead, 10th.
All right. I've talked to people in cults. They have told me, I know what I'm in is not true. However, I have so many family members involved. I have to play the part. So I have to lie about the truth. I can't tell them what I know if I'm going to keep my family. So now you have a reverse situation of someone who's not the originator of the lie, but one who was caught up in it, then later found truth, but won't come out because of the social effects it would have. Now, what kind of lie is he living?
a lie of omission.
Thank you.
But that doesn't.
No,
Now,
well,
hold
hang on. I'm
I
not
want to
trying
hear
to
this.
say.
I want to hear this from 10th. Go on. My wife may
I'm
sit in
not
this
trying to say
category.
there's either. I'm not trying to say that there's just two positions, A or B. There's all kinds of situations within the subject we're talking about. Okay, now I know that the originators are liars. I know after that, people are professing it and saying it's true, and they're not lying themselves, but they're passing on a lie. Then later, one of them finds out it is a lie that they're passing. And then they say, yeah, but I'm going to continue to live it and say it because I have so much to lose if I come out with the truth. And then there's all kinds of...
Maybe.
But that's when it turns into
Stop. That isn't necessarily what I think we're experiencing, though, 10th. So as much as that is a narrative that might be the case, if the people who are permeating this lie through the normie society were on the path that you described, but they're not. What we actually see is anti-flat earthers, which aren't akin to what you've just described. They have to brace against their own original narrative once they fall down the hill, which is why they're a team of ciphers, as John described, wanting to go back up that hill that I use in metaphor to normie globe belief. And I think the people who are permeating it out currently are still in that position. Now, what we don't know are whether or not we've got a silent majority. We don't know that. So it might be the case that there's plenty of people in normie society that do actually understand the nature of our reality, but aren't vocal about it and aren't necessarily going to continue to perpetuate that lie, but they're not going to be in the comments threads because they actually take to heart things that I say, not that it's my influence, but akin to what I've said. You know, go out and enjoy life, go to the forest, go to the local swimming baths, whatever it is that keeps you involved in life more than in comment sections. People might actually do that and think, yeah, well, I'm not going to waste my time expressing and making myself part of the vocal minority. We might actually have a silent majority in that regard, in which case we might be on the precipice of a complete paradigm shift across the Western world. You just don't know. But the way the end of your story tailed off was to ignore how we actually deal with anti-flat earthers. There is actually
I wasn't arguing, nor am I now, about your summary of anti-flat earthers. I'm talking as a subject as a whole. And so that version you just said is true about anti-flat earthers. What about the other versions? What about the topic itself? When someone originates a lie, that person knows they're lying. That's basis point one. After that, people may spread the same lie but not think they're lying. That's basis point two. Basis point three is when that person who was spreading a lie finds out he's spreading a lie. What's he going to do? Well, that's up to that individual.
I got a good example, QE. When it came to his attention, he was honest. So you have honest and dishonest going on here.
Hold on a second. QE was not always a flat earther.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general. Neither is Andrew Thomas Young, but he's presented with the same thing QE's presented with. Does he go the honest way and say, wait, how can you have gas pressure out of a container? That's an impossibility.
Hold on. QE always knew that you needed a container to have gas pressure. He just never thought of it through the paradigm of heliocentrism.
But when it came to his attention and it got hold of him, he became honest.
Right. So it's like controlling the information people receives is really important.
No. He didn't become honest suddenly because something came to his attention. It wasn't, again, like with the rule changes. Hold on, Neil. Like with the rule changes, when we say, well, no, there's something that's changed in terms of information that's now laid down in writing, but the ultimate behaviour doesn't change. Well, the same would be applicable. You know, you don't know what you don't know, and when something comes to your attention, you do know about it, but you behave the same way as you would to any other information. In other words, he suddenly doesn't go, oh, wow, you can't have gas pressure without a container. That's made me an honest man. Now I'll be honest. Before I was lying.
I did not say that. I said he was honest in that situation right there. Why, Andrew Thomas Young sees the same thing. He's got to hear about it now. Why ain't he turning his story?
Here, let me give you an example with Andrew Thomas Young.
Who is Andrew Thomas Young? Anybody
Yeah,
else know
he's a San Diego professor. Okay, so Andrew Thomas Young, and we've shown the documents, says all his refraction studies were done on a plane Earth. And then he says he wants to take geometric considerations to make it work on a sphere. Push come to shove, and can I finish? Push come to shove, it's a thought experiment. That's what he's going to. That's what he's got to do.
He said it because we know it's not a flat plane. That's what he said. He believes it's a globe when he was saying that.
I agree.
Okay.
I don't
maybe,
see.
Maybe I'll do this talk another day.
No, why? We're just saying. I think Andrew Thomas Young.
Because I'm trying to get to the point. He also says it's a thought experiment.
That's a justification for his own faith in it, though.
Right, but his actual hands-on was on the flat plane. His denial of the Earth being a plane makes him take geometric considerations. So take your geometric considerations and make it work on a sphere, even though you got everything from a flat plane. And then later on, you're going to find out, well, it's just a thought experiment anyway. A thought experiment. Well, let's break down those words. Thought and experiment. What's an experiment? What's a thought? Where's the IV-DV relationship? Sorry.
Domino's Pizza, can I take your order? Just bear with me.
This will come out later. Don't worry.
What I'm trying to say, though, is there's the malice of forethought, right? Understanding what you're doing. I don't think Andrew Thomas Young was like, I have to deceive the masses. Once they realize the horizon is beyond its geometric limitations, they'll know it's a plane.
How do you know?
He looked at the information and said, well, this doesn't work on a ball, but I know it's a ball, so I have to make it work.
I agree. And I also agree with you, Tenth.
That's
Just let me agree with Tenth, because he's getting frustrated. No, I agree with you also. How do you know? You don't. We've not got a crystal ball. We are divining his thoughts. We are exercising a bit of insanity here. Yeah, we don't, Tenth. We don't know.
Well, how would you know?
Exactly.
If he said it somewhere else.
What, he rubbed his hands together and went, "Mwahaha, this is being done to deceive from the flat." No, I don't think so.
No. I don't think it's going to be that way. I'm just saying, as we go through this argument, and time will tell when more documents reveal themselves, maybe he said somewhere else something else that would give us a little bit more. And then something else will be unearthed, so to speak, and would cast more light on the subject. We got lots of time to find out why he said it.
Why do you want to know? Do you want to punish him?
No, that's not.
That was high
point.
pitched. Well done. That was very high pitched.
Well, so what? I mean, it's like, well, it came out of the blue. Like I'm not even thinking. I'm not even thinking about punishing anybody. Well, why should there be any punishment for anybody? I'm just talking.
There shouldn't be. Just to go back to the example with QE, right? So, like Nathan said, I don't believe QE was being dishonest. You know, the moment that he realized and he applied it to the paradigm of a geocentric Earth versus a heliocentric one with the gas pressure, right? That wasn't him being dishonest before the fact. He was ignorant of it in that view, in that way of viewing
but
it.
He became honest.
But then, well, he didn't become, well, to say he became honest, this is what I think.
Maybe I'm using the wrong word.
Yeah, it's because if you say he became honest, it's almost as if you are stating that he knew that he was dishonest before. He became honest in terms of, in the sense of what it is, right? He became honest to what is reality. Yes, he then fell in line with what reality is. Yeah, that's what you mean. But
No,
to say
stop. No, you're just confusing enlightenment with honesty. Finding out a piece of information or having it drawn to your attention is becoming enlightened. It's not suddenly becoming, it's nothing to do with honesty.
Yeah, but he still had to make a decision from there.
No, but it's the way it's said. It's like Nathan just said. That's why he took issue with what you said, Neil. It's not. I know what you meant by it, and you didn't mean anything wrong by it.
Oh,
at all.
no, but he
you
still
meant
had
the
to
same
make
thing.
He still had to make a decision from there which way to go.
Well, no, you can
Well,
deny the.
I'll,
No, no,
He's
okay.
here.
You can deny the implications,
He's
is what you're
here.
saying.
Yeah,
on,
you
Roger.
could deny the implication, yeah.
Right, go on, Roger.
Well, QE's here, so he can talk for himself, right?
Probably eating something.
He's probably
Yes, QE, we're talking about your coming to manhood.
No sound, QE. You've come off mute. Not hearing anything.
Sounds sort of similar to the argument I hear sometimes from Christians who say that once you've, heard about Jesus, that if you accept him or reject him from that point.
Let's stick to flat Earth.
You kill him, we'll kill him.
No, but it's an interesting point that Nathan makes. It's not that someone becomes honest; it's that they become enlightened, right? So there's a difference, right? Because
I used the wrong freaking word.
No, I'm not talking on your point, Neil. I'm saying just talking on that point in general, right? Like genuinely, I know what you meant, and you meant no wrong in it at all.
So you don't have to humour him. Yeah, Neil. Can't you get the word right? Enlightened.
Yeah, Neil.
Yeah, man.
Kick him.
Get it right next
Kick
time.
him. Kick him. Get Sam's Meat Market. You kill him, we'll kill him.
No, you're all good, Neil. But it's worth discussing because it is an aspect of honesty. People automatically jump to the worst conclusion when they've got a big revelation on their hands. They go, "Oh, wow."
What's the problem?
Go on, QE.
Sorry, what's the problem?
We're just trying to figure out how dishonest you are.
What's the measuring
stick? When you're presented with the information and I didn't use the word enlightened, which I should have. When you came to the realization you can't have gas pressure out of a container, you did not go the other way.
The other way? Well, there was no other way.
Well, you could have ignored the implication in which of what that meant, right?
You did not.
You could have chosen to delude yourself. Is the
You
point?
could have braced against it.
Isn't that the story with everyone? That's not just me.
That's the story of insanity.
No, it's not. But
it's the story of anti-flat Earth insanity.
John, just you.
Descent into madness. Well, that would mean space is fake. Well, then it can't be real. And then you end up like Rumpus. Second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. Is where you end up if you follow that path, bracing against it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's not just me. That's with everyone, right?
Yeah, everyone has to make that choice. Everyone's offered the pills, or in some cases, which is why maybe a bit of guilt on some of the panel's part, they get pushed down the hill. Suddenly they're being told about a subject they had no intention to study. And then the next thing you know, they're having to contemplate the very nature of their existence. And before you know it, they're tumbling down the hill going, what the hell? I want to be back up there just not caring about it, being on a globe like everyone else.
Can I give an example?
Exactly that. No, let's just say, QE, you were used as an example because you were such a clean example of someone that was intellectually honest in the moment, right? You could have chose to delude yourself. That's why you were used as the example, because effectively most people would have deluded themselves. You didn't. So that's why you were used.
Yeah, and the words that we used were, Neil said you chose to be honest, and we were just taking slight umbrage with Neil's absolutely appalling use of language.
and great timing.
The way he said it, that's what I meant exactly.
But that's one of the problems, isn't it? Like, this is not an agree-disagree thing anymore. This is just what is. And people want to make it agree-disagree.
We have a recent example. Why is Rumpus no longer on your show, Nathan?
He's proven to be an outright liar.
Thank you. So if information comes out on anyone else who matches that same criteria, then what can we say about that person like we're saying about Rumpus? The same thing, right?
To be a liar, that's why I say it's dangerous language. You've got to have a demonstration of their intention to deceive. Well,
no, I understand. I understand. And I'm saying there are some people that way. There's some people who are just passing on a lie. And there's some people who know it's a lie and they stay within the lie because the social consequences of coming forward with the truth. I'm covering all the bases. I don't understand why we can't have more than one aspect to this.
I was the one that pointed out the false dichotomy and whether it's a lie or the truth.
Well, if I know something's a lie and I keep it under taps, so to speak, and I don't tell my loved ones, what am I?
What if you believe that lie and you think it's the truth?
No, he's saying if
What
you
are
don't.
doing?
No, he's saying if you don't.
Then
Then withholding of that is equally deceptive.
But there are reasons as to why people would do that. It depends on what scenario in which we're talking of. So when we're talking about wartime, there would be maybe information that you would know that your family potentially shouldn't know based upon, you would also have other forms of information that would allow you to sort of have a percentile of like, right, it's 90% likely that this information is pertinent to my family for them to know. Yes, I'm not telling them, so therefore I'm being dishonest about the information, but it's 90% likely that me telling them this information is inconsequential because I understand something further along the field. So therefore, this information would only serve to frighten the life out of them, for instance. So then there's also that avenue to that as well. There's a bigger amount to the whole sort of the juxtaposition of that. There's a huge ratio.
Yes, but what you're describing, if I may, you're describing, I'm one of the very few people in World War II that know the D-Day landings and what they're going to be. So I have to keep it a secret.
Exactly.
Okay, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about you've been lied to. You find out everything about it is a lie, but you're in a cult and your family members are not going to respond nicely because they're going to excommunicate you. And so for the sake of social implications, you live the lie. You never tell them. So this person knows the truth and knows he's in the lie, but he's got to stay in the lie. That's what I'm saying. There's many aspects. I don't see how anyone can corner one part only.
Let me talk on that a second. So then again, the same sort of like rationale would apply to the D-Day landing sort of question in the sense of like the mitigation of damage. We see this in the world of Scientology, we've actually have examples of this. For instance, with Leah Remini and her family, every single one of them wanted out of Scientology, but all of them were afraid of being called what you would class as, I think that what they call them toxic persons, a toxic person or something of the like, right? So, they have the implication there then that they would be excommunicated. Not only that, but then also at the same time labeled as somebody that to the whole community as an overall, as someone that would be avoidionary and should be effectively cast away in terms of economics. So then we also have then the implication of, okay, economically speaking, if I am to, out of what I know is true, then maybe I can't feed my children. So there becomes a greater overall sort of ethical or moral choice as to when you would, let's say, keep information in your brain and when not to release it due to the fact of the implication. So like, if I release this information, all it's going to do is remove food from my children's mouths, right? Versus, I release it, the information, it excommunicates me, it removes food from my children's mouths. Then at that point, is it okay to be dishonest and to not release the information? Like, that's why it's so nuanced. And I understand what you're saying now.
On that moralistic dilemma, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 and Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!